A man is climbing a staircase when suddenly his key falls to the ground. He notices that the key has fallen and starts to turn around to pick it up. Soon after, he gives up because he won't be using it again. This man then reaches the rooftop of the building. While he drinks his beverage, we meet Koak Sai-Omhing, 26 years old, who came to the city to start a company with his friends. They suffered a lot, but Koak didn't expect that after the first successful year, when things were starting to move forward, his friend would take everything from him. After the incident, all he thought about was going back, but he had lost everything and didn't know how to get out of that abyss where everything was anger, confusion, and pain. The man starts climbing over the rooftop safety railing while thinking that he had isolated himself from everything and everyone, and all that remained in his mind was suffering. And then, unable to take it anymore, he decides to jump while thinking that he can't see any other solution. While falling, he thinks that he can finally be free. Suddenly, the man opens his eyes and hears the sound of rain. He sits up and asks why on earth he couldn't go all the way. Still surprised, he notices that he jumped from a very tall building and wonders if he's really so useless that he couldn't even do that. Then he notices his hands are injured even though he has no apparent wounds. He hears groaning sounds coming from beside him. A lightning bolt then cuts through the city sky as the man opens his eyes wide and sees something he would never have imagined. Totally shocked, he gets up and sees a man with an outstretched arm trying to touch him. That man, clearly a zombie, groans and crawls on the ground while trying to grab him. The boy screams, turns his back, and starts running desperately. While running, he wonders if that really was a zombie and how it was possible, and if this was the afterlife. Then he truly thinks it can't be the afterlife because the rain, the heartbeat, pain, the breathing, all of it is processed in the brain, and for that, he has to be alive. Upon reaching the busier street ahead, he comes face to face with several zombies. He says they're everywhere, and all he did was stay home for a month. He wonders what happened to the world during that time. Suddenly, a boy runs toward him asking for help, but in the middle of the way, he trips on a floor tile while screaming desperately. Completely frightened, mouth wide open, our boy notices that they're really eating humans. He turns around and starts running, thinking that now is not the time to be shocked or he'll be the next victim. While he's running, another lightning bolt crosses the rainy night sky of the city, and he notices a girl in the middle of a bunch of zombies. He realizes that the zombie girl seems a bit different from the others. She's standing still among them, not moving. The zombie girl then lets out a loud scream and suddenly starts running with insane speed toward Koak. Surprised, he wonders how she saw him from so far away. The zombie girl runs past him while he jumps to dodge her attack. The zombie girl keeps running and turns the corner, thinking she'll find him. But then she stops and starts looking around, clearly confused because he's not where she thought he would be. He then concludes that a normal zombie's movement isn't slow, but that zombie was abnormally fast. The boy then, with a shocked look and a strange smile on his face, says that he's definitely dead this time. Suddenly, loud banging starts on the door behind him while he wonders why he would be afraid of that. Starting to run, he says the door won't hold for long, thinking that he himself just jumped, and yet now he's scared. Seeing another creature turning the corner, he wonders why he gets desperate for his life when he sees zombies chasing him. He almost runs into two zombies that are on the staircase as he runs up it. The zombie girl finally breaks down the door with a kick, while he keeps thinking that the quickest way out would be to let them catch him. Then he finally comes to the conclusion that jumping and being eaten by zombies are completely different things, and that's why his body isn't obeying. Once again, as he climbs the stairs, he runs into two more zombies and wonders if that's really what he was looking for or not. He then remembers questioning his friend Guangzhou, saying they were best friends and asking why he did that to him. The friend, smiling, says that he can't understand common sense, and that it's no wonder he has fallen to this position. The now ex-friend then says that someone who has no value and is useless should be treated like trash and thrown away. In another memory, we see him try and get a loan. Based on his score, the girl says she can't help him while he keeps begging, and then he thinks that he tried to leave that world on his own, and after seeing what the world is like, he changed his mind. He kicks a zombie while shouting for it not to touch him. Suddenly, he thinks that he's more determined than ever to live as he runs up the building's stairs. He runs past countless creatures shouting for them to get out of his way. Still running and yelling that he's definitely not gonna die there. Smiling, he says that even though he tried to leave the world on his own just now, he changed his mind. He ends his sentence saying that since the end won't fix his pain, then he's not going down anymore. Then the zombie girl finally catches up to him and looks at him, full of hatred in her eyes. The zombie girl jumps furiously to attack our boy from behind as he thinks that he's going to destroy that bastard, but for that, he'll definitely need to survive. Then we see a message from a system being activated. Next, the zombie misses her strike, hitting the wall beside the boy's head. He looks at the zombie's hand and wonders what's happening. The system says that subject Koak Sai-Omhing has been redirected, and that the first task has been assigned, followed by showing that an eligible candidate has been found. Xiao Yu? The boy still doesn't fully understand and wonders if the employee he is supposed to hire is the one in front of him. The system then asks whether or not he wants to accept the employee. At the same time, he remembers the number of zombies outside, so he raises his hand high while saying that in times like this, he has no other choice. Then he quickly brings down his hand, clicking the button to accept the employee. At the same moment, the zombie girl puts her arms around her body as if hugging herself. She then lets out a scream with tears forming in the corners of her eyes. The system then displays a red screen saying that the employee activation was successful. Then we see the young and beautiful woman with scars on her body and wearing a dress, looking at the boy. He says he still doesn't understand what's going on, but he has a first job for her. Then he simply asks her to get rid of the zombies around them. The astonishingly fast girl steps in front of him and immediately descends with a prepared strike at the zombie below the stairs. The blow hits the zombie directly and it falls face first to the ground. She then takes its arm and throws it behind her, hitting another zombie right in the face. Noticing the proximity of other zombies, she prepares and crouches down. Then she does a full split, hitting 2 zombies at once. She soon lands, recovers, and prepares for the next strike. She jumps, returning up the steps, passing by Kowak. The zombies barely have time to understand what's happening when the girl is already on top of them. She delivers a cross strike, launching each to one side in the middle of the staircase. All this time, our boy stands still, watching in awe at the zombies' powers. And then he thinks that in this world, this was simply the best employee ever. Then he can finally breathe a sigh of relief, stating that it's all over. Soon after, the system voice appears, congratulating him on completing the mission and showing the rewards obtained. Among the rewards obtained are a backpack, 100 points, and a chance to play the lottery, which makes the boy very happy. He stops, crouches down, and opens the backpack, and sees what's inside. He finds clothes, food, water, and also weapons. The boy stops, looks at the system screen, and wonders what the system is, and what it wants him to do. The boy says it's the end of the times, and he's not even shocked anymore by the so-called system, so he decides to check the lottery. Clicking on a huge green button labeled Lottery, the system says that his ticket has been activated. Suddenly, a large roulette wheel appears in front of him, and the system announces that the lottery is currently spinning. As the roulette spins, the system explains that he will receive random rewards. Then finally, the roulette stops, pointing to a spot below on the right side. The system congratulates him, saying he won a memory fragment of Xiaoyu, and the boy wonders what that is. Then we see the memory fragment while the boy asks the system what it does. Smiling, he compares the item to progression drops from other games. With the memory fragment in front of him, he wonders how he can use it. Suddenly, he touches the fragment, which begins to glow intensely. Right after, he's sucked into the memory fragment. Still confused and with one eye closed, he wonders what just happened. He seems to be in front of a real estate company called Shengqi with a girl at the reception, while a man approaches from behind. The man doesn't notice his presence and walks right through him. That man finally arrives at a desk and calls the girl Xiaoyu, while she asks if he needs anything else. Finally, he understands that he is inside the girl's memory, and that's why they don't notice him and pass through him. The girl's boss says that as a new employee, she is very competent, but the company's current situation is not good. Smiling, she says it's fine since she came from the countryside to the city alone, without much education, so she's grateful for the job she has. The boss looks at her embarrassed, while she agrees to receive half her salary. He says the company will pay the other half once things are back on track. She smiles, excited, and thanks the boss once again. He then tells her to keep up the good work she's been doing. Our boy watches from the side. Xiaoyu looks down and picks up a hair clip. She looks at herself in the mirror after putting it on her head and says, "It's very beautiful," that she bought it with her first paycheck. She states that ever since she left the house, she promised to live happily, no matter how difficult the situation. The girl takes a breath and happily says that sooner or later she will have her own house. The boy then smiles, looking at her, and comments that she's very optimistic. A few seconds later, he finds himself back in the place he was before, asking if the memory has ended already. Soon after, the system shows a message saying he received a side mission to return to the real estate office and recover the girl's hair clip. Seeing the rewards and what he has to do, he starts wondering what the employee's loyalty means. He smiles, looks at the girl, and says that seeing how she handled the creatures, he'll leave them all to her, but that they need to go now and finish that mission. Sometime later, we see a large building with some lights on, while both the boy and the girl have changed clothes and arrived at the real estate company. The girl, already in her new outfit, continues kicking zombies in the realtor tower. The boy, also in new clothes, is still impressed with the zombie girl's combat power. He stands still, watching while she throws zombies into the air, and thanks God for having her as his employee. He goes up the building and says that while she takes care of the zombies, he better find her ribbon quickly. Looking beside the desk near the computer, he finally finds the girl's ribbon. He turns around with the ribbon in hand to give the good news, but then sees a zombie flying over his head. Desperate, he wonders if she's trying to kill him with fright or by throwing a zombie at him. Then he notices that, in fact, when she's killing zombies, she doesn't care who's around, throwing them in all directions. But nothing stops her from, in the middle of the chaos, pausing and looking at him. Not understanding her gaze, he stares back. The system then unaffectionately says that the employee's loyalty level is very low and that she might confuse friends with enemies. He panics as she looks at him like he's a piece of zombie meat and wonders if that's what loyalty is used for. He runs toward a door, asking what kind of game design this is, and tries to open it desperately while the girl follows him. He manages to get in, close the door, and shouts that this is the second time she's chased after him. He says that this time there's no system to reduce the damage and pulls a cabinet from the side to block the door. At the same time, the girl is on the other side, pounding on the door with great force, non-stop. The boy says he needs to complete the task quickly because the door won't hold much longer under the power of her blows. He says he already has the ribbon. Now all that's left is the other half of her salary. He finally decides to look behind him and gets a good scare. Behind him is her boss, now a zombie counting money. He says he got a huge fright and wonders if this is really the boss he saw in the memories. Then he notices the money and says that he lied to the girl, saying the company was bankrupt. Looking at the zombie boss, he says he looks just like the friend who took everything from him, and that even as a zombie, all he does is count money. He gets lost in thought while the zombie girl continues pounding the door, and the sounds finally snap him out of his trance. He goes over to the zombie and says he'll only take the 2,000 for Xiao Yu and leave the rest of the robbery with him. As soon as he touches the money, the zombie's hand comes over and grabs his arm. He stands still, not understanding what's happening. The zombie boss stops everything he's doing and looks at him with his standard zombie face. Pulling out his knife, he asks if the zombie doesn't want to let go of him. The zombie boss gets angry and charges at him. He then jumps back, even while being held by the arm, with his knife in attack position. He gets the idea to use the zombie as a test for his new blade. With a quick strike, the zombie's arm goes flying, and he comments that the blade really is sharp. Turning to the side, he says the next strike will be to take the zombie's life. Something happens that makes his blade go flying across the room. He doesn't understand what happened while the zombie boss stares at him again and starts to scream. A second later, he is on top of him, and the boy fights desperately to try to get free. The boss quickly lowers his zombie head to bite the boy. The zombie falls, but his jaw hits Kowak's shoulder. Nervous, he thinks about what he's going to do and whether this will be the moment he turns into zombie food. He tries to calm down and think of a way to get him off. He remembers that the zombie was counting money, and maybe that's the key to getting rid of him. Stretching his hands to the side, he manages to reach some nearby bills. He throws the money into the air, shouting for the boss to look. Somehow it works, distracting the zombie, who rushes over in a panic as if the money were about to fall out the window. Kowak sees that the tactic was a success. Right after, he runs, grabs his knife, and charges at the boss, saying that these companies always make employees feel like crap. The zombie boss is still gathering up the notes on the floor, until he seems to notice the approach. The boy then says he doesn't agree with any of that and brings the blade down from above in a vertical motion. He lands the hit squarely, splitting the zombie in half. One half to one side, the other to the other. Standing there wiping his knife, he says that the company he plans to create will never abuse its workers. He finishes by saying he'll take care of them as if they were his family. We return to the zombie girl standing still, staring straight ahead. We see she's still in her former workplace, but now wearing her new clothes. Then we see the view of tall buildings on a beautiful morning with rays of sunlight peeking through the clouds. Kowak approaches from behind the girl, saying the ribbon was a bit torn, but he tried to fix it and asking her not to run off if it didn't turn out so well. After putting the ribbon on her, he's happy and asks her to look. The zombie girl brings her arms to the front of her body and looks thoughtful. Then a gentle breeze blows and she smiles. The boy seems to notice that she smiled and blushes slightly. Right after, he says maybe he didn't see it clearly, and the zombie girl seems to look confused. He then says that this is how the journey begins to build a post-apocalyptic company, and that he's going to find all her memory fragments. We see a city full of zombies while Kowak says that he was a guy who failed, bankrupted his business, and was ready to end his life until the zombie crisis. Since that happened, 5 days have passed, and he's been exploring the system non-stop. Now he has several new abilities, such as recruiting zombie employees and another that gives him rewards for completing tasks. As long as he uses those two abilities well, he will surely be able to form a good team quickly. The zombie girl continues kicking zombie faces with the same ease as the previous 5 days. The boy now starts cutting zombies too, using his knife. He smiles and recovers while thinking that he hadn't felt like this in a long time, and it almost felt like he was going through a process of self-recovery. Then he calls the system and asks if there's a new task for him. The system shows him a task to stock up on resources, and our boy thinks that sounds good. It's something he enjoys. Happy, he looks back, calling the zombie girl. The girl seems distracted, staring ahead while standing still, as Kowak asks if she's okay. He wonders as she walks toward him why she seems to be acting even stranger than usual that day. Putting the thought aside, he says they should take the opportunity to go shopping without spending money since they're in a zombie apocalypse. We see a store filled with numerous zombies inside. Next, we see the zombie girl doing what she does best, kicking zombies while the boy searches for food items. Happy, he thinks that thanks to Xiao Yu taking care of the zombies around them, he can relax and calmly search for what he needs. 2 zombies start trying to approach them, but the girl promptly sends them flying through the air with ease. The boy notices that the girl's destructive powers seem to have diminished that day, that it's not like it was on the previous days. When the last zombie flew, it ended up hitting a shelf that knocked food to the floor, accidentally helping him find what he was looking for. He kneels down to pick it up and sees that it's canned Manhwa lunch meat. Smiling, he thinks that all of this is thanks to the zombie girl's incredible kick. Kowak calls the girl, but she doesn't respond, just standing still in the middle of the store. When he calls her again, the girl turns her face toward him and he notices that she's crying. Immediately, he starts walking toward the girl, asking what happened. But then, a zombie grabs his foot. He finally realizes that the zombie the girl kicked isn't 100% dead yet. Suddenly, several others begin coming toward him, and he realizes that none of the zombies she defeated were actually killed. He quickly rushes to grab the zombie girl's hand and asks the system what happened. Why does she seem to be suffering so much? The system explains that she entered a hungry state, and because of that, her performance dropped drastically. Kowak asks the system what he can do to feed her. While escaping, the system says he can exchange points for food for his employees, and he asks for the exchange to be made immediately. He draws his knife and begins annihilating zombies while the system says the employee's meal will be ready in 30 minutes. Kowak finds himself surrounded with a zombie groaning behind him. Looking at how many there are, the boy wonders when so many zombies got in there. He begins to think of a plan while the girl is still tearful behind him. Then he wonders if he's going to die right there in that place. Suddenly, he hears a voice calling him to go to a door. A girl is motioning for him to follow through it. He clenches his teeth, thinking about what to do, holding the girl's hand and with his knife in the other. He starts running, saying not to get in his way. Facing a zombie, he asks if it can't see that his employee is hungry. Throwing himself onto the zombie, he finishes the sentence by saying that he's in a hurry. He runs with an army being impaled on the tip of his knife until they pass through the door. The door then closes after he goes through. Kowak begins to get up, thanking her and saying that if it weren't for the help, he'd definitely be in trouble. Then he sees a knife being pointed at his neck. The girl behind him says there's no need to rush to thank her. Another person then says for him to hand over the food he just collected. Then we see that he is surrounded by some other people, all pointing melee weapons at him. The girl insists that he hand over the food, emphasizing that she doesn't want to hurt him. Kowak thinks he's at a disadvantage until Xiao Yu is recovered, while the others say to just hand it over now or they'll take it by force. He smiles and says that he'll give them the food. The boy opens a can of beans and shows it to them. Two of the men start rummaging through and eating the food like starving people, while Kowak tells them to take it easy because there's enough for everyone. The girl then apologizes for their behavior, but says they couldn't find food in the warehouse and haven't eaten anything in 2 or 3 days. She explains that they weren't like this before, but the situation changed because of the zombies. Kowak thinks he didn't expect them to prefer starving to going outside to search for food, even with the monsters being so strong. Another man steps in front of him and tells him to give them his food and water. Our boy says the man is asking too much. Someone else behind says he was being very generous, so he must have much more and wouldn't die if he gave them a little more food. He stands up and says that they don't dare fight zombies, but they dare to intimidate a single person who's in the same boat as them. A man appears behind him telling the big guy to start searching. The girl says for the men to stop because he already gave them food and they shouldn't act that way. The man named Wong asks what a little girl like her knows, saying the world is over. With a wicked look, he says if you don't steal from others now, someone will steal from you. Kowak then says he gives up and tells them to take whatever they want. The men start going through his things while our zombie girl stands frozen, just watching. Suddenly above her in the ventilation duct, a noise happens. Next we see something trying to get out from there. The men come closer to search, and while he thinks that if they take his weapon, he won't be able to do anything afterward. Soon after, tied up, he says he has a can of meat tied to his leg. The men, surprised, ask if they heard that right. Soon after, one of them asks why he didn't say that earlier. Each of them seems to have a different idea of what should be done with the meat our boy hid on his leg. He sees the perfect opportunity and says whoever wants it will have to go get it, and throws the can of meat far away. The meat lands behind them at some distance. Everyone then ignores the boy and starts running after the can of meat. The skinny guy up front, drooling, says that group of chubby guys will never beat him in a race. He then grabs the can of meat, happy and drooling. One of the men says now he knows the downside of being fat because the can was just one shelf past him. Suddenly the can of meat is on the ground and the man asks where the skinny guy went, while the woman says she doesn't care, she just wants the meat. The girl then tells Auntie to calm down. Soon after, a man tells a girl named Xiaozhang to run while the ant is on the ground, looking at something in front of her. He then says for her to save him. The girl stands there staring in shock at both of them, not yet understanding what was happening. Meanwhile, Kowak notices that the rope he is tied with is really tight. The girl and the uncle come running back, and the boy wonders why they're already back. She comes and unties him, telling him to run. His zombie girl suddenly senses something in the air. He asks what happened, and the girl says with a trembling voice that she was almost eaten. Kowak asks if she was eaten by a zombie, and the girl says it wasn't. She was about to explain what it was when suddenly something flies against the wall above them. We see the zombie girl looking at something in front of her with many eyes and giant teeth. A monster that looks like a squid with many eyes and a huge mouth appears in front of them. He wonders if that thing is a monster or a mutant zombie. A man is running in front of the monster, which comes after him with its mouth wide open. The monster's mouth closes around the man. leaving only his hands sticking out. Xiaozhang and Koak stand watching the scene in disbelief, while the uncle heads for the door behind them. The uncle at the door thinks he can't die in a place like that, and he needs to get out of there. Koak, seeing the uncle's intention, tells him not to open that door. As soon as he cracks the door open, the face is already there on the other side, mouth wide open, ready to bite him. Obviously, he gets bitten while Koak thinks they are really stupid. Zombies start entering through the door the uncle left open. Our boy draws his knife and starts fighting while thinking that the octopus doesn't seem to be as strong as Xiao Yu, but that he needs to buy more time. The system informs him that the task has been classified as dangerous. The monster starts moving toward them. He hides behind our zombie girl, who remains apathetic as always. Koak calls out his employee's name. As he turns to do that, a zombie takes the opportunity to get close to him, but the boy manages to stop it in time. Our boy thinks that everything really might end there. Then the system says the task has been classified as dangerous for the host, and enables collaborative work mode. The system then states that Xiao Yu has had her collaborative work mode activated. The girl then seems to shed her scars, which instead begin to wrap around our boy. Seeing her scars on his body, he wonders what that collaborative work mode could be. The system then begins to explain the relevant details to him. A zombie comes toward him and is sent flying far away by a lightning-fast punch. Another one is getting dangerously close to Xiaozhang, who screams in fear. He quickly jumps and slashes the zombie across the back with his knife. Seeing another zombie, he tells the system that maybe it doesn't need to explain. What just happened already told him a lot about what it is. While slashing numerous zombies, he asks the system if his abilities are now on the same level as his employees. The system says that, to be more specific, it's the attribute values that synchronize. The zombie coming from behind him has its head smacked, when the zombie girl drops a club on it. Then she appears with food in her hands while chewing. Koak sees her and asks if she's recharged. He says it'll be much easier with her around and is glad she recovered in time. Looking at the octopus, he says that now the two of them can take care of it quickly. The two then start running toward the monster. It tries to get them with its tentacles, but they're too fast and dodge easily. As they approach the monster, Koak calls the zombie girl. Seeing an opening, he tells her to finish it off. Next we see the monster full of holes and cuts all over its body. The boy watching comments that they're really strong, and thank heavens he didn't go up against them. Sometime later we hear him say that they finally got out of there, that the task is complete, and that they're full. Actually, Xiaozhang runs after him asking him to wait. She says that alone she and the uncle probably won't survive, and the girl says that Koak is really skilled in battle. The girl was about to ask something, but Koak doesn't even let her finish and cuts her off, saying no. He says that there's water, food, and weapons there, that it should last them a while, and that he helped them as payment for letting him hide there. Then he says he definitely won't work with someone who pointed a knife at him. Next, he turns his back and starts walking away, wishing them good luck. Sometime later, he remembers he didn't use the reward from the task lottery, and opens his system window in front of him. He then activates the lottery by pressing a button in front of him. The roulette wheel starts spinning again, huge in front of him. The boy gets excited to see what his reward will be. Koak was shocked, wondering if that is serious. When he sees his reward, we then see a loaf of bread and a cup of coffee. He thinks that even though he hasn't eaten meat in a long time, he feels like he just wasted his lottery ticket. The zombie girl, with her expressionless gaze, seems to drool slightly over Koak's snack. He notices that she's staring hard at the food and tests by moving it to the side to see if her eyes follow, and guess what? They do. So he decides to give her a bit, and even with her blank expression, she becomes very happy. The system notifies him that by giving his employee her favorite breakfast, her loyalty has increased and unlocked a skill slot. He then smiles at the girl and tells her to let him know if she wants to eat anything in the future. He'll definitely get it for her. The system window tells him to choose one of the 3 skills to insert into the skill slot, but he complains that it would be easier if he could test them first. The skills are named Violent God of War, Immortal God of War, and Furious God of War. Upon complaining about testing the skills, the system says that he can test them, but he'll have to choose one once the test is over. They go to the port, which they found near the location of the previous day's mission. There are a lot of zombies and a lot of space. In the middle of the containers, he says there's no better place than that to test the skills. In the middle of the containers, he says there's no better place than that to test the skills. We see several zombies walking among the containers, lost. He sits on top of one of the containers and tells the system he wants to test the Furious God of War ability first. The zombie girl quickly runs toward the zombies. She suddenly stops and starts charging energy in her wrist. Then she throws a punch forward, sending the zombies flying away. The boy's impressed that she only threw one punch and made all of them fly through the air. Clearly, that ability increases her capacity to clear out zombies in the area. Then he tells the system he wants to test the Immortal God of War ability. The zombie girl becomes surrounded by a green energy and lets out a scream. The zombies in the area all seem to notice her presence. The boy then seems to notice that she attracted the zombies to herself and is absorbing their hatred. He also notices that her scars turn green and her wounds are healing. He sees that the ability not only gives her regeneration, but also the power to provoke zombies, and he finds that really cool. Koak then asks the system to test the Violent God of War ability. He runs looking for a place to hide and asks her not to go crazy and try to attack him like last time. The girl's hair is thrown upwards as she charges the new ability. He notices that her gaze becomes somehow more serious than usual. He sees the girl run and destroy everything and everyone quickly, while reading that her attack power will increase greatly, but she will have a cooldown period afterward. After some time of this energy burst, she stops with red energy flowing from her body. Right after, she uses one of the containers as support to jump toward the zombies, and we see the scale of destruction she causes when the zombies fly through the air and dust rises. One of the zombies flies in the direction of the girl, who catches its head in midair. Soon after, we see energy exploding from her hand where the zombie was. Both Koak and Xiao Yu notice there's someone else in that area, and the boy wonders who she is. We see a girl in black clothes with horns and spikes coming out of her elbows. The boy notices the spikes on her and asks if she's a mutant zombie. Xiao Yu starts running across the containers heading toward the zombie. She then throws a kick, which the other white-haired girl defends. Koak notices that even though the attack was executed with the power of the Violent God of War ability, the other girl managed to block it. While the two girls fight, he says that this zombie is different from anything they have encountered so far. He notices that the effects of the Violent God of War ability are fading, and if they don't end the fight soon, they'll be in trouble. So he activates the collaborative work mode and charges at her too. Koak asks her to retreat while the mode is being activated. The two of them start running, escaping from the new zombie. Looking back, he says the thing really runs fast. As he runs, he notices that there are still zombies in the way and draws his knife. Suddenly, he realizes it's not zombies. It's a boy who, seeing him approaching with a knife, yells for him not to kill him. Koak halts his attack and asks if he's alive, even as he doesn't wait for an answer and starts dragging the boy. The other boy is pulled along while asking who he is and begging him not to pull him. The boy being dragged tells him to calm down and not to panic. Then we see the white-haired zombie girl arriving. The boy who said not to panic now looks panicked and points at her, saying she's a mutant zombie. Koak sarcastically asks if he still wants them not to panic and stop running, but the other boy swears and tells him to keep running. Our boy keeps running and says she might be a mutant, but she's still a zombie. There must be some way. Suddenly, he turns into an alley and tells the boy to follow him, but obviously they end up in a dead end. The mutant zombie reaches them from behind. Xiao Yu faces her, and the two start fighting again. Koak thinks his zombie girl won't be able to beat the white-haired mutant, but he needs to think of something fast. He smells something strange in the air and keeps wondering what it is. Turning to the other boy, he asks him to give him his backpack. The boy starts taking off the backpack while asking why. Koak says there's no time to explain, and that if he wants to live, just hand over the backpack quickly. He gives the backpack to our boy. Our boy starts spinning the backpack while telling Xiao Yu to fall back. The backpack is thrown into the air above the mutant zombie. She slices the backpack in half with ease. The backpack, which had gasoline and something inside, splits in two and spills its contents over the white-haired zombie. In the next second, Koak tells him to be careful as he throws a lit lighter at her. He celebrates even before it hits, and in an instant, everything starts catching fire. But even so, apparently that wasn't enough to stop the white-haired zombie, who walks out of the fire toward them. Meanwhile, he tells the other boy not to stand still and to move. They manage to escape, and Koak says it's refreshing to be alive while thanking the chubby guy for his backpack full of flammable items. The chubby guy is desperate, thinking that he got away, but what the hell is he going to tell the others? Suddenly, the system says he has a new mission. The chubby guy keeps whining, saying that Big Sis Meng is going to feed him to the zombies. Suddenly, with shining eyes, he asks the boy if he wants to hire him. We see a conversation saying that the zombies are increasing, and that lately they have seen people coming and going from their area. Then we see who is talking, and it's two people. One of them points at something the other says they also see. Right after that, our boy Koak is coming down from somewhere, attacking a zombie, while the chubby guy watches from above. Then we see a place with people sitting. In the next second, we see Koak entering, saying he made it, while the chubby guy runs in behind him. The system window says his mission was completed. He thinks he only got points and asks about the lottery ticket, to which the system says he can exchange 100 points for a ticket whenever he wants. Suddenly we see people around pointing weapons at them and asking who they are, and the chubby guy quickly says not to attack and introduces himself as Daju. The other man asks where he was. Daju says he ended up in danger and couldn't get the fuel, and those two saved him, so he brought them to meet the leader. The man says the leader is on the roof and says Lao Lai will take them up there. Koak didn't expect to see such a clean place in this zombie apocalypse, and the other says it was an unopened hospital, so the place is still well kept. While the boy says their camp is well organized, we see the chubby guy with a scared face while going up the stairs. Lao Lai says things are like that there because their leader is very organized, that she gives everyone tasks and organizes everything. We see two children running down the hallways while someone above them says there's training going on and that entry is forbidden. After explaining that he brought two new people, they let them pass toward the rooftop. Then we see a woman with a baseball bat in hand telling someone not to just dodge the zombies, but to attack too. We see three boys in front of some zombies that are tied with ropes so they can't reach them, and they say it's their first time in combat. The woman yells, saying they won't get a second chance and that they better think clearly. Then she asks what the characteristics of the zombie are. One of the boys yells that they're afraid of light and get slower in the morning or under any bright light. The other boy says they're also sensitive to sound. The woman then, swinging her baseball bat through the air, says number 3 is to destroy them. The boys, with fearful and apprehensive looks, say they understand. A man calls the woman captain and says Daju is back, while she asks if he got the fuel. Daju then walks in and stutters that he didn't get it. The captain asks if he dares to come back and says that without the fuel, they won't be able to turn on the bright light, and the new recruits won't be able to handle night training. She then turns to him with a murderous look and says he promised 3 times, and she gave him 3 chances. Right after, she yells, calling him useless trash, and tells him to get out of the camp by nightfall. The captain points the bat at the other 2 and says they don't need more people recommended by that boy and tells them to leave too. Kowak tells her to calm down and not be in such a hurry to expel people. Then he says they're there to do business. The captain asks if she really heard that and starts laughing. She says her camp has a place to stay. Food, drinks, medicine, soldiers. Everything one needs is there. Then she finishes by saying they're just a team of 2 and asks if they're trying to fool her. Then one of the ropes tying the zombies comes loose, causing one of the barrels to fall. This frees 3 of the zombies who start running toward them. The boys who were training start screaming that they escaped and that the sun is set, so they're stronger now. One of them yells and asks for help from their captain. Kowak then snaps his fingers and calls to Xiao Yu, who slaps one hand against the other as if to say she understood. She then looks toward the zombies and jumps at them. Laolai and Daju watch in shock while wondering what the zombie girl is doing. Meanwhile, Kowak says they need fuel and that he can help them get some. He says the payment will be allowing him and Daju to stay in the camp. They're all stunned by the proposal while our boy reinforces that in a zombie apocalypse, friends are different from businessmen. Then he continues while Xiao Yu fights. The zombies saying that as long as there's profit, he'll be the most reliable ally they'll have. We see tall buildings and Wang Ru asking if he really wants him to take him to a shopping mall in the middle of a zombie apocalypse. He continues, saying there's no electricity or water, nothing good over there. Kowak then says no one forced him to accept that task and that since he did, he should stop whining like an old man. The system shows an E-rank mission. Going back a bit into the past, we see the captain showing the mission client and saying he's been with them since the beginning of the apocalypse. Kowak says it's a child's mission and asks what he has to do. The captain then says to go to the playground at Udamall. Then we return to the present with our boy complaining that in order to work in the camp, they'll have to follow that brat for now. He notices a zombie running toward them from behind and tells the brat to stay by his side. Then something hits the zombie in the head. The boy calls Kowak an old man and says his name is Wang Ru. Then explains that he's not going to the mall to play, but to look for his father. Kowak then notices that the boy trained well at the camp and says that if the boy's father is in the mall, his survival chance is practically 0. Wang Ru says he knows that, but he just wants to know if he turned into a zombie or not. And turning to Kowak, he says if his father became a zombie, he wants to kill him. Kowak looks impressed at the brat, while his mission changes from E-rank difficulty to B-rank difficulty. Somewhere in the past, we see a gloved hand closing and opening with a small stuffed rabbit afterward. A little girl, daughter of a couple, says that it's amazing and asks the bear in front of her to do it again. She then asks her father, who removes the bear mask, why he likes making people happy so much. He points to the people and says they sometimes have lonely, sad, or painful days. And he asks his son if someone passing by and being cheered up by his performance could change something in their day. The boy asks if the father is joking, to which the father says he's being very serious. Then he says smiling is magical, while we once again see the brat in the present. He explains to Kowak that if his father became a zombie, he'd never forgive himself for having turned into a human-eating monster. Kowak asks if that's really why he wants to go there, and Wang Ru says yes, that he needs to do it himself. Our protagonist notices it's really strange because they're on the 3rd floor and still haven't seen a single zombie. Pointing his flashlight forward, he says he hopes it's not some kind of trap. Suddenly, he hears a sound ahead that grabs his attention. Then he sees a mutant zombie looking like an amalgam of several people in a bumper car. The head near the bumper, holding the steering wheel, says something and seems to notice their presence. Then we see that the entire zombie looks like a car. As the driver turns the wheel and we see the zombie car turn in their direction, it emits a horrendous scream right after, causing several other zombies to wake up. These other zombies also start screaming, and all of them charge toward our group. Kowak says it really was a zombie trap, and Wang Ru says the older boy jinxed their mission when he mentioned a trap. Our boy promptly calls for the zombie girl. She then gets ready for combat. In the next second, the girl leaps at them, while our boy thinks that's why no one from the camp wanted to take the boy there. The zombie girl lands in the middle of all the zombies, and moves past them toward the mutant zombie. As she gets close, she prepares a powerful kick. The zombie girl lands her kick on the zombie's bumper. It doesn't understand, still looking forward, holding the steering wheel in its hands. Then the bumper falls beside it with a thud. The mutant zombie screams in rage. It throws the steering wheel at the wall in front of it. The force is so strong it brings down the whole part of the wall on top of Xiao Yu. Kowak yells for the zombie girl, trying to see her through the smoke and rubble. Then he tells Wang Ru to find a safe place to hide. but the brat is stunned, standing still and staring ahead. He points while a zombie dressed as a bear walks toward him and says that it is his father. The boy remembers his dad dressed in the bear costume. Then we see reality. The bear suit, all dirty and torn. Kowak calls Wang-Ru, telling him they should hide first. The boy determinedly responds, no. He says Kowak should run with Xiaoyu. He needs to settle things with his dad. Our boy was about to ask him something, but is interrupted by the kid saying to trust him and to remember his mission. Smiling, Kowak says, okay, to him then. He starts climbing the rubble right after. Smiling, he says he didn't expect that brat to be such a formidable human being. Right after, we see a zombie with its mouth open threateningly. But nothing is threatening to our zombie girl, who kicks it in the head. Other zombies jump in the air. She manages to block some, but is clearly getting surrounded. One of the zombies grabs her hair and starts pulling. She begins to be suffocated by the horde of zombies surrounding her. Xiaoyu ends up disappearing in the massive number of zombies around her. Kowak watches and tells her to fight upward. Suddenly, we see zombies flying in all directions, and Xiaoyu rising. From among them, fist raised, panting. He asks if she forgot how to fight. With that, boss nearby. Descending to her, Kowak tells her to take care of the chubby one while he handles the small fry. Then she screams and looks back. Our boy then activates the Violent God of War ability in collaborative mode. The girl's scars are shared with our hero, and the two set off, each for their targets. Meanwhile, the brat walks alone with his flashlight and tells himself to stay calm. He trained hard for this moment. Then he says again that if his dad is alive, he'll bring him back, and if he's already a zombie, he'll kill him. He finishes by saying that someone like his father would never forgive himself if he became a human-eating monster. He then walks a bit more, and trembling, turns a corner. Next we see someone in a bear costume, all torn and dirty. Our brat takes a deep breath and says, "This is it," and runs toward his target. On the way, a zombie on the ground grabs his foot and makes him fall as he asks where that monster came from. That seems to catch the attention of the guy in the bear costume, who heads toward him with arms stretched out. The boy starts hitting the zombie that grabbed him while the other keeps getting closer. Then he looks back and realizes the guy in the bear costume really saw him and thinks he's dead. Kowak wonders why every time he goes out, he runs into a different type of mutant zombie. He notices that Xiaoyu doesn't seem to be entering the emergency state like last time, so this zombie must be weaker. The car zombie then moves strangely, and our boy notices it moves sideways. Enraged, the zombie screams, staring directly at him. One of the faces that makes up the car has its mouth open, and suddenly something strange happens. It starts to swell, its veins begin to bulge. Then it explodes with a terrible bang. The boy manages to notice just in time. He then jumps to the side, managing to dodge it. He looks back and wonders what the hell that was, if it was a zombie jet. Meanwhile, the zombie car looks straight at him, growling. The zombie gets angry, and our hero seems to smile and enjoy the idea. As it fires 2 more zombie jets, Kowak says he knows how to defeat it. The boy says that no matter how strong it is, a car without a driver is nothing. He calls the zombie girl and tells her to aim for its head and give it everything she's got. The zombie girl, just as Kowak asked, charges full speed at the zombie driver's head. After a powerful blow, we see one of the car's faces screaming. Right after, the zombie lights up like a waterfall of fireworks. A few seconds later, it explodes in a glowing ball as our boy says that was amazing. He looks back and, with a worried expression, wonders how things are going with the kid. And then we see the brat's flashlight on the ground. Wang-Ru is hitting the head of the zombie that grabbed his foot and made him fall to the ground. The bear head falls to the side, revealing the zombie inside the costume. It starts walking forward, heading toward the boy, who says not to do this. With tears in his eyes, he screams for his father. A few seconds of silence follow his cry. The zombie then stops in front of him, looking down at him. Again, a few seconds of silence pass, and after a while, the zombie seems to let out a soft laugh. Wang-Ru is completely stunned. He remembers another time in the past when he asked his dad what they would do in case of an apocalypse, like in the movies, and the father said life would be very hard for everyone. And he tells his son that what humans would need the most is hope and positivity. Back in the present, we see the tears streaming down the brat's cheeks as he clenches his teeth hard. He raises his arms and his weapon, with tears in his eyes and yelling. We see the zombie image of the man in the bear costume, then an image of him still alive from another moment, smiling, asking please for him to smile, and then the boy finishes what he came there to do. Sometime later, we see the brat sharing something with Kowak, who is carrying Xiaoyu on his back, and says that his father's response was really cool. The little boy asks him if one day he'll be as strong as him, that he wants to be a soldier who makes people laugh, but Kowak says he doesn't think he'll make it. Then Kowak says that with a father as amazing as his, he'll definitely be stronger than him. Crying, the brat looks at our boy and says yes. We see a card game going on. Kowak is playing cards, and after spending a few days at the camp, he started taking on more missions. He explains that he began to get along better with the people at the camp, and that he hadn't paid much attention to the mission rewards. But with Wang-Ru's toy, for example, it was added to the museum and gave him extra points. Kowak discovers that when contractors give items that are important to them as rewards, they turn into points. Besides that, they get stored in the system's museum. Kowak is telling Lao Lai that he can't back out of the bet now and asks for the cigarettes he always carries. The man then asks if he can give him anything else, and he says no. He then takes one and tries to light it, saying he'll use one right then, while Kowak says he's a sore loser, and runs after him. As he lights one, he starts coughing like crazy. The people around start laughing at him, saying he can't even do that and doesn't need to pretend to be cool. One of the boys says he's not doing it just because he wants to, but because it reminds him of his wife. He always lights one when he thinks of her because of the smell. Lao Lai says that Dacian is 30 years old and still asked Meng Dai to get him a stuffed animal. The man, embarrassed, says he got it for his daughter because she likes those things. Kowak then asks if Dacian really has a daughter, saying he's never seen her before. He says they live in the county, and that he called them a few days after everything happened and believes they're okay because they're tough. Kowak reveals that Xiaowu also had Meng Dai get something for him, and that he's curious to know what it is. The man with glasses then says it's nothing, while the other one smiles and says he's shy. Lao Lai says he'll give his watch to Meng Dai if he tells her what the boy asked for. Our boy says he can't say. It's part of the client's privacy agreement. Then the boy says it's not necessary and reveals he asked her to bring flowers. Everyone is left speechless when they hear their friend's request. The two men start crying with laughter as one asks if the flowers in the trash were his, and the other asks who he confessed to. Then the man says it was to show a new logistic recruit while everyone laughs. Irritated, he says his heart has already been broken and how dare his friends laugh like that. Suddenly we see a lightning bolt cut across the sky. All the boys wonder what that was and if it really was lightning. Then the captain appears, putting her clothes on quickly. The boys are in shock. She then asks everyone to get up. Our boy asks what the situation is while covering his eyes. The captain asks Xiao Yu to take the weak, sick, and injured to the 3rd floor and tells Lao Lai to gather people and weapons while she sets up a defensive line. Our boy then wonders what's happening and why they're mobilizing. The girl is tying up her hair while saying a wave of zombies is heading their way. Our boy sees the opportunity and asks if she wants to hire them to help with the defense. She looks at him, thinks for a second, and then says yes, but there wouldn't be many rewards. Our boy proudly asks if he looks like a dishonest merchant taking advantage of people's needs while thinking the system will reward him. Right after, the system confirms an S-rank mission. He's extremely shocked, saying that a B-rank mission was already extremely exhausting. Then he yells at the system that next time it should let him know the mission's difficulty before accepting it, and says he feels deceived. Sometime later, we see more lightning streak across the sky. Lao Lai has his cigarette and says he hopes nothing bad happens this time, while our boy asks him what happened the last time. He says the camp's original captain was someone else, who died half a month ago on a rainy day just like that one. We see the white-haired zombie as Lao Lai speaks about the one who killed her. Then he falls silent, staring into nothing, and after a while, looks to the side. Then he reveals that the one who killed her at the port, where Kowak met Daju, was the current captain of the camp, Meng Dai. Some time ago, he says that day they had only received a wireless transmission, and the leader at the time went out looking for survivors. He comments that was the first time they'd gone out in the rain since the start of the apocalypse, and they didn't know the rain agitated the zombies. The two women constantly fought because they had very different worldviews, even though both were extremely driven and intelligent. A man says there are zombies in front of them and that they're surrounded. The former leader asks them to move out of her way because she'll handle them. She then grabs her weapons and starts opening fire on the zombies. Suddenly, she looks to the side and sees a zombie coming to attack her. She quickly dodges the attack. Then we see several wires set up and a zombie walking toward them getting caught by the neck. The woman on the other side lifts the wire using the zombie as a counterweight. Right after, she kicks it in the face, which sends it flying toward the other zombies, crashing into one of them. She then lands gracefully on the ground. As she gets up, she looks at her group and tells them to keep going. The current captain tells them to run and not slow down. Right after, she looks up at one of the containers and asks what that is. She yells for Yanji to be careful. Suddenly, a piece of metal flies and hits Yanji right in the face, leaving a vertical cut. Suddenly, a zombie jumps down and lands in front of her. The zombie starts growling, and we see it looks like a mutant zombie with extra teeth. She stares it down, taking on the task she would soon have to order. Yanji calls out to Meng Dai and tells her they need to go ahead or everyone will die there. The other one, after a few seconds of silence, yells for Lao Lai to get them and go. He, without protest, says he understood, but at that moment his heart was full of uncertainty. He understood that if they stayed, they would end up causing more casualties. At the time, he ran and drove to meet up with the others on the other side and then returned to the port. What he didn't expect was that only Meng Dai would get in the car, and as soon as she did, she told him to start the engine. He asked about Yanji, but the woman only tells him to start the car as zombies begin to surround the vehicle. Again, he asked about the other woman and begs her for an answer. After a few seconds of silence, Meng Dai says she killed her. He continues saying that after they came back, she said the other wanted to use her as bait to escape alone, and that's why Meng Dai killed her. Many people in the camp say it's a lie, that she did it to take over leadership of the camp, and they hope that he, for having been there, will do something. But he says he didn't say anything because he knew that if Yanji was dead, the most suitable person to lead the camp really was Meng Dai. The man then wonders if she truly is the best leader and if he was right not to question it. but our boy says the camp survived, and that says it all. He then turns to the man and says his decision was correct, that having a good person in leadership who ensures everyone survives is better than the truth. The man then smiles and repeats the word, survive. The rain continues to fall relentlessly into the night. The zombies start getting more agitated as the rain begins to fall in the city center. Lightning begins to strike in the sky, making the zombies even more frenzied. So much so that our boy notices and says the invasion is beginning. The captain was on the east side of the building giving instructions to the people in the camp. She tells them to prepare electric fences at the windows and says not to save on fuel because survival is more important. One of the men is surprised by the information that zombies climb windows until he actually sees one climbing the window behind him. Another man tells him to move and pull the electric fence while he provides cover. Then we see several zombies climbing the windows and scaling the building. Someone yells to the leader that they need more people on the west side. One of the zombies reaches the window and looking inside lets out a scream. Then the foot of our zombie girl appears, smashing into its face. Laolai asks Kowak where he found that girlfriend because the girl is incredible, and he says she used to train in Chinese kickboxing, and that she's not his girlfriend. A man arrives and calls Laolai to help on the other side. He quickly says okay and starts moving, but the captain appears right after and tells him to stay there and calls Xiao Wu instead. Laolai then, confused, asks whether he's staying on that side or not. The captain immediately says yes, and that now he's the one in charge of that area. His friend jokingly asks if he thought they couldn't hold that side without him, while Laolai tells him to shut up and just go. A zombie approaches Laolai from behind, but our boy yells at him not to let his guard down and kills the zombie before it can attack. He apologizes and the two of them start taking down more zombies together. Meanwhile, in the west area at the entrance to the third floor, we see several bodies on the ground and people running from zombies. The captain tells Deshin to eliminate all the zombies and rebuild the defensive lines while she holds the third floor pass with Xiao Wu. She thinks the situation is not looking good and wonders if she'll need to blow up the stairs on the west side. A boy runs from a zombie that's chasing him but is saved by his friend who tells him to get up and help the leader. Soon after, the captain asks Group B to turn on all the lights. A boy says the fuel won't be enough. The leader says it doesn't matter. If they don't make it through the night, the fuel won't matter anymore. Again, we see several zombies climbing the windows. Then we see an improvised spear going through a zombie's mouth. One of the friends says it seems like he's not so useless anymore, and the other, smiling, tells him not to start getting cocky now. The friend then asks how many of them can land a headshot with a spear, while the leader teases him to go hit a few more. He laughs and says that after they win, he'll help with their wedding. Behind the captain, we see one window still intact and another broken. Most importantly, we see different claws dug into the concrete of one of them. Meanwhile, on the eastern defense line, we see a zombie with several spikes protruding from its body screaming. Kowak notices the mutant zombie behind him. The zombie jumps toward him. He then screams for Xiao Yu. The zombie gets dangerously close to him with its claws ready to strike, but the attack is stopped by our favorite zombie girl. Kowak thinks that was really dangerous, that the attacking zombie got way too close. He thinks that if he were a normal person, he definitely would have died from that attack. We then go back to the western area, where the situation is tense. We see the man in the glasses suffer a lethal blow to the abdomen while the leader watches. Then with a trembling voice, he calls out to her as his strength fades. We see some sacks and shelves behind the door to keep it in place. An elderly lady asks Deshan why they're up there. He calls her Grandma Chen and apologizes for failing to defend the base. The people there start to panic, saying they don't want to die yet. The captain asks everyone to calm down, that it's not over yet, and tells Laolai to count the people and for those bitten to receive a dose of kindness. A girl approaches Xiao Wu and says he should get help with his wound. The girl then begins tending to the cut on his arm in silence. A few seconds later, he calls her Xiao Wu and starts to say something. She says he is dead and that she didn't see the boy go with them and had imagined it. The man then apologizes, saying he couldn't protect him. Kowak says that idiot suddenly confessed to her with a bunch of flowers in front of everyone the day before. She got nervous and rejected him reflexively, but later tried to find him to talk and couldn't. Then feeling tears fall, she says she actually really liked him. While her eyes fill with tears, she can no longer hold back. Nearby, Laolai talks with the leader and says there are 9 soldiers and 4 logistics members left, and she says that number is too low. Wang Ru starts shouting near them, saying he wants to go down. Their brother Xiao Wu was killed by zombies and he wants revenge. He says that if they're not going to take revenge, then they'll stay locked up there waiting for the end, or they'll do something. At that moment, the zombies reach the door of the place where they are and begin to force it. Everyone inside at that moment begins to panic and gets startled. The captain then tells them to fall back immediately. Kowak thinks it wouldn't be a problem for him and Xiao Yu to get out of there, but wonders what will happen to those people. Meanwhile, the zombie girl is eating quickly, and our boy asks her to eat calmly, saying no one is going to take her food. He wonders if he should do a random draw, but depending on what he gets, it might not help much. Opening the system, he sees something he should try. The system shows an item called Large Meal for Staff. He swipes to the side, and we see the Human Resources window showing his employee, our beloved zombie girl. As he swipes to the side, the system asks if he wants to open a slot for a new worker, and he confirms the unlock while wondering if anyone is nearby. Soon after, the screen shows it is loading the resume directory. Amazed, Koak looks at the system screen after his search. Meanwhile, outside the rain continues to fall. Koak tells leader Meng that he needs to leave the territory for a while, and that he's leaving Xiao Yu in his place to help defend. He quickly adds that he'll be back soon if he survives. The girl then calls out to him and says he accepted her mission. He smiles and tells her not to worry because he remembers, and that they're business people after all. He finishes by saying that integrity always comes first. Once again, another loud bang hits the door of the place they're in. Finally, we see a hand coming through the door, and one of the zombies puts its face through the crack. The captain then yells for everyone to start defending. That's when we see a zombie leap toward Xiao Yu from behind. It prepares its attack, but the zombie girl isn't off guard and responds in kind. Rewinding a bit, we see Koak asking her while she was eating if she could help them defend for a while. He says he needs to go somewhere for a while because without that, the camp won't last until the next morning. And then he says that if the girl isn't there with them, they definitely won't even last the next 3 hours. Koak says she needs to stay there alone and help defend the place, and that he won't give her any orders. He adds that he's not doing this because he thinks she can handle it alone. Then smiling, he says he trusts her. Next, we see the girl using her ability and making energy flow through her body. In the middle of the rain, our hero leans against a container, hiding. He notices that due to the crowd of zombies around the camp, the number around the port has decreased. The next question is how he's going to take control of the new employee. He then thinks that he can't rely on the approval system like he did with his first employee, the zombie girl. Looking at the system window, he says that this time he is prepared with a modified UV beacon, but it can only be used once. And besides that, all he can rely on is his beloved sword to move forward. While moving across the containers, he wonders if the camp folks will be able to hold out. He thinks it's better to worry about himself instead of others, or he'll be torn to pieces. A zombie appears behind him as he's thinking that if he runs into another mutant zombie, he'll probably get beaten up by both. Our boy stays silent as he slowly turns his head toward his back, while lightning flashes across the sky. Suddenly, a mutant zombie that was on top of the containers jumps at him, while Koak looks in disbelief. He prepares himself while thinking that everything he says ends up happening, and raises his weapon to try to defend himself. The zombie hits the weapon directly, allowing our boy to block the attack. However, the weapon is broken and thrown far away. Next, we see our boy being thrown far, hitting his back against a container. Before he could fall to the ground, the mutant zombie charges at him again. Suddenly, something happens before the mutant zombie can reach our hero. We then see the white-haired zombie girl who stopped the mutant zombie from continuing its attack. The mutant zombie attacks the white-haired zombie girl, but she dodges. At the same time that she dodges, she lands a hit right on the zombie's face. Our boy then sees that the two are fighting each other, while the first mutant zombie crashes face first into a container. He breathes in relief as he thinks that for now he's safe. He notices the movements the white-haired zombie makes and wonders if she learned Krav Maga before she died. The two seem to have a lot of experience fighting each other. The mutant zombie then grabs her by the leg and slams her face into the ground. Keeping the zombie girl pinned to the ground, the mutant zombie on top licks her neck and prepares to bite. Then it sinks its teeth into her neck. As it does that, we see the wound on its arm begin to heal. It's absorbing the other to heal itself. Then Koak ponders what he should do. If he runs now, the camp will be doomed, but something worse might happen if he interferes. He then thinks of the zombie girl and says there's no time to hold back now. Next, he grabs his UV light and turns it on, calling the zombie's attention to him. The zombie turns and looks at the flashlight, raising its hand in front of its face because the brightness is blinding it. Meanwhile, Koak tells it not to even think about hurting his own employee. The zombie then jumps at him, escaping the beam of UV light. Once again, as it's getting close to our boy, an iron bar pierces through the zombie's body. On top of a container to his left, our white-haired zombie girl is holding 2 more iron bars ready to throw. She then moves and hurls both iron bars at the zombie pinned to the ground. Next, we see all the iron bars embedded in the zombie's body, pinning it to the ground while it lets out a desperate howl. A few seconds later, the zombie's body simply vanishes. Our boy says that it's finally been defeated and wonders whether the explosion was because it was a mutant zombie or not. The white-haired zombie girl then stands in front of him, holding an iron bar in her hand, and Koak now wonders how he's going to be able to control this young lady. Once again, lightning cuts through the stormy night sky. The kid tells him to aim for the zombies' heads, but the other man says they're moving too fast and can't get a clear shot. Then we see 3 zombies jumping on top of our little brat to attack him. But our zombie girl was paying attention and protected him, passing right through the 3 zombies with ease. One of the zombies was a mutant, and her attack didn't completely destroy it. It then turns around and leaps at her with an attack. With great speed, we see the wall behind the zombie girl shatter. And then we see the mutant zombie with its hands embedded in the wall while she's flying above its head. Then she comes down with a fatal attack from above onto the mutant zombie. One of the men says not to stand there stunned watching the girl because Koak clearly said not to stay close to her at that moment. He then continues saying that if they slack off, they'll be the ones dragged down. One of them then points and tells Lao Lai that one of them got back up again. He says to leave it to him and charges toward the zombie. However, when he attacks, the zombie quickly dodges. The zombie prepares an attack against him while he says that the little girl is strong and that he can't back down either. He dodges the zombie's attack and delivers another blow. He tells himself he absolutely can't die there. The man says that his wife and daughter are waiting for him after all. As he says that, we see a mother and a little girl as zombies. He seems to recognize them immediately, his expression filled with shock. Then he lets his axe fall loudly to the ground. Falling to his knees, he calls out to Ying Hong and his daughter. The two then walk toward him with blank stares and hungry open mouths. With a trembling and stuttering voice, he asks how they ended up there. The two zombies then get very close to him while he remembers how they were in life. In shock and with a trembling voice, he smiles and says they came all that way to find him. He stands up and opens his arms, saying that he missed them so much and hurries over so he can hug them both. Then we see the real scene of the two zombies getting very close to him as he says they should go home. One of the friends then yells out for Deshawn. The other watches the scene with a stunned expression. Xiaoyu was leaning on some sandbags, resting. Still very tired from using her ability, she tries to get up. Soon after, we see a zombie with a red headband in front of her. Behind it, we see countless other zombies. The zombie girl, one eye shut from the effort, finally gets up. The boy then shouts for Deshawn and not to go any closer. We see a girl telling Xiaowu not to go after her. This line is confusing, but I must preserve it as corrected. The girl then trips over a trash bin that had a bouquet of flowers. Then we see the foot of a zombie stepping on the bouquet of flowers that had been given to her in life. The zombie then lets out a fierce roar. The injured zombie girl clenches her teeth and then charges forward. However, midway through, she collapses to the ground. Unable to stand any longer, still trembling, she tries once again to get up because she sees that everyone she was placed there to protect is falling one by one. And then she remembers Koak's words saying that he trusted her. Once again, she stands and faces the countless zombies ahead. They stare back at her, and she lets out a fierce scream while looking at them. Again, unable to stay on her feet, the zombie girl starts to fall to the ground. But before she can hit the ground completely, someone catches her. She sees that the one who caught her was her boss, who tells her to rest well, and says to leave the rest to him, as we see the white-haired zombie girl standing by his side too. The girl is lying on the ground with tears in her eyes, screaming for a zombie not to come near her. Suddenly, a zombie falls to the side, struck by something in the head. We then see Koak saying, "Xiaowu, rest in peace." Meanwhile, on the other side of the camp, we see a man asking why Deshawn is so strong while struggling against the zombie. The white-haired zombie girl then rushes past and lands a blow to the back of the zombie Dacian is fighting. Lao Lai stands with his mouth open and eyes wide as he sees who the white-haired zombie girl is. Koak tells Lao Lai to take care of Xiaoyu and leave the rest to him and the reinforcement he brought. Still confused, he wonders who the reinforcement is and who that white-haired woman is. The captain then says that it looks like he noticed too. She says while watching this scene that even with many changes, there's no way they could be mistaken. That the white-haired zombie is definitely Yanji. The zombie then eyes one of the targets ahead and charges out. She effortlessly slices the zombie's head in half as if she didn't use any strength at all. And then we go back a few hours in the past and see the same white-haired zombie against the backdrop of the port container. Looking at Yanji, Koak says that the camp she was supervising is facing serious problems and that they need her help. After a few seconds with no response, he says it's not working and that maybe he'll need to try another tactic. And then he starts trying to convince her in another way. He says he doesn't mind helping Yanji kill Meng Dai. A few more seconds go by without a response, and he clenches his teeth, thinking his tactics still aren't working. She then starts walking toward him with an iron bar in hand. He begins looking around for a way out, thinking he might die right there. The girl quickly attacks, throwing the iron bar toward the boy's face. Then we hear a loud crash. Koak was on the ground while a zombie lies next to him with the iron bar she just threw. The system then informs that Yanji has agreed to a temporary employee contract with him. The boy, seeing the type of contract she's proposing, thinks she's only willing to help him for now. The system also states that the temporary contract can be revoked at any moment at the employee's will. Then we return to the camp scene with a zombie eliminating all the other monsters present. Koak then cheers for her, saying she's amazing. The system says the zombie criticizes him for the good luck shot, feeling embarrassed, and says he sounds like a wimp the way he yells. We see a zombie with a megaphone near its mouth. The zombie then starts shouting something into the megaphone, pointing forward, causing all the other zombies to move in that direction. Koak then asks the girl if she wants to show off her skills to him. She quickly charges at the group of zombies. On the way, she grabs a knife off the ground. The system shows that the employee Yanji is using her weapon master skill. The knife she picks up then begins to glow with an intense light. Amazed, Koak says that it was just a small dagger. How is it possible that she's doing what she's doing? Finally, we see the result. Yanji managed to split all the zombies' bodies in half using only a simple dagger. The system then says that her skill can turn any object in her hands into a weapon, and increases range and power. Once again, we see the port containers on a rainy night with lightning in the sky. The captain tells Yanji that it looks like they managed to shake off the zombies, and maybe they can make it back to camp quickly. The other then grabs the girl's hand and calls her. She then shows her arms with 2 giant scratches and says she fears she can't return to camp. The girl then says she'll find an axe and cut off her arm, and as long as the virus hasn't spread, she still has a chance. She says she fought for too long against that guy and that she's using what little energy she has left to stay conscious. She tells the girl not to say that she died fighting zombies, and that she's the only one qualified enough to lead in her absence. Then hugging the girl, she says to leave the rest of the camp in her name, that she begs her to do so. The captain says she's a liar, that she hides every day and cries because of her, and in the end, she always stays alive. Smiling, she says that after getting through this night, she'll get her revenge. Meanwhile, the zombie shouts into the megaphone as another horde charges in their direction. The white-haired zombie then prepares for combat. She hits one of the zombies with a box. Meanwhile, she finds a screwdriver and acts quickly. She throws the screwdriver, making it pass through the faces of 3 different zombies at once. Kowak thinks that all she did was use a screwdriver and it caused absurd long-range damage. The zombie then picks up a tennis ball. The glowing tennis ball is thrown by the zombie toward the horde. The tennis ball then smashes the face of one of the zombies as Kowak renews his hope of winning. The megaphone zombie keeps shouting and more zombies continue to appear. Kowak then points out the megaphone zombie to Yanji and says they need to get rid of him as soon as possible. The system says the zombie claims it's impossible to get through the crowd of zombies, while Kowak says just to lead the small ones to them. Finally, their eyes meet as the captain says to lead it to them. Kowak tells Yanji that she's in charge of taking out their leader while they handle the smaller ones. Right after that, he opens his backpack and says he's been waiting to test that thing. Then excited, he pulls out a clapping monkey toy from the backpack. He turns the toy on and starts making a ruckus as he yells for the zombies to follow him. Laolai asks if he wants to help too, while the other man asks him to go get more ammo because he's already out. Yanji then stands still, watching the boys' strategy and the camp people fighting. She smiles slightly as the battle continues. Quickly, she leaps toward the megaphone zombie. As soon as she passes, the zombie's head is cleanly separated from its body. The other zombies do not understand what's happening and are left in shock. Still holding the knife, she swiftly slashes through all the others around her. The girl stops behind one of the zombies with a knife in hand. She throws the knife, but the zombie deflects the attack. Kowak screams in desperation, saying that it blocked her last weapon. The girl then grabs a belt, which instantly starts to glow. Suddenly, we see one of the zombies' pants fall down. He yells angrily, saying she stole his belt. Quickly, she wraps the belt around the zombie's neck and pulls it back. She then breathes and calmly closes her eyes. And with one final pull, she defeats the zombie. On a sunny morning, we see birds flying. A man starts digging a hole with a shovel. Laolai is digging a hole in the ground, and we see that 2 weeks have passed since that horrible night. We see another grave being made as we're told that less than half the survivors made it through that night. Due to the damage the building took, the rest of the survivors decided to move out. Kowak received several missions in preparation for the group's departure day. Laolai kept pestering the captain to tell him what happened that night to Yanji, and she finally told him everything. Xiaoyu woke up after being unconscious for 2 days and stuffed herself with food, and Yanji was never seen again after that day. The captain says they can leave once they finish packing everything. Laolai asks if she's not going with them. She turns her back and says she's going to stay and wait for Yanji. Laolai says it's absurd for her to wait there if she doesn't even know whether the other will return, and asks how long she plans to stay, saying it's dangerous and all that. She says she's already made her decision and he doesn't need to try to convince her, but he asks her to say something that makes sense. Meanwhile, we see Yanji from the top of a nearby building watching the scene. Kowak surprises her, asking if she's really not going down there to see them. She turns as he says not to be surprised that their temporary contract still hasn't ended and he can still track her. He comes closer to her, saying that even though Laolai was suspicious, he waited for the sake of the camp and that because of her, Meng Dai was overburdened. Kowak looks at her seriously and tells her to go down there and at least say goodbye properly. The zombie stands still for a few seconds, thinking. He jokes with her, saying that she's already a zombie and doesn't need to think so cautiously anymore. The boy then smiles and says, not to worry, that he's there for her, and then tells her to just go down there. Meanwhile, Laolai continues arguing with Meng Dai. The girl finally tells him to stop trying to convince her and to just go already. Then he says to hell with it. If she's going down, they're all going down together and he'll stay and wait with her. Kowak then arrives and tells them to stop arguing, and that he brought Yanji to them. Laolai gets happy and walks to the car, saying that this is great, that now they can leave. Kowak says that she's not there to go with them, but to say goodbye. Everyone then looks with surprise in their eyes. He says that the girl is no longer human. The horns on her head are proof enough of that, and that for some reason he can talk to her. The whole group stands hesitantly behind Laolai, while she thinks they're acting like that because of the zombies. Meng Dai yells, saying that she was going to leave without saying goodbye, and asks if she knows what she went through this past month. She says that everyone suspected her after she took her place, but she endured all the pressure and finally managed to unite everyone. But every day she questioned her own work and was afraid of splitting them up. Every day she asked herself what Yanji would do. She says that just because she's no longer human doesn't mean she would turn against her, that they were battle companions, that if it weren't for Koak, she wouldn't have even tried to give them a last farewell. Yanji then walks up to the girl and puts her hand on her head. Tears begin to form on Mungdai's face, which soon overflow as she cries. She then hugs the zombie, unable to hold herself back anymore. Koak says he will count on Lao Lai and Mungdai from now on. The guy smiles and says to leave it to him. The captain says that's the most expensive clothing kit she bought before the apocalypse, and that Yanji should take good care of it. The brat asks if Koak and the zombie girl won't be going with them, and what they should do if they can't defeat the zombies, to which he replies to do their best. Then he says to be optimistic and remember what his father told him. Sometime after, the three stand still watching the van with the group of survivors driving away. Koak and Yanji are side by side when he says that they finally left. He looks at her sideways and asks if she has any plans. She stays still, and suddenly the system appears with a notification saying that a new employee has been successfully hired. The system says that even though she thinks he complains a lot, following him isn't a bad option for now. Koak smiles and says that he's cool with that. He opens the system screen and says that now it's time for the rewards and sees he has 1,007 points. Then he says that this time he wants to spin the roulette 10 times. He voices that finally, after a lot of effort, he managed to gather his first 1,000 points. Smiling, he tells the system to activate the lottery. He's excited and tells the system that today he's the luckiest man alive. The two employees are watching him as he excitedly tells the roulette to start spinning. He wins a night vision contact lens that grants short-range night vision when used. The boy also wins a black and red tactical knife. Koak gets happy to win 2 blue-quality items right away and says that now he doesn't need to carry weapons anymore. He can just summon them from the system. Storing his new weapon, he tells the system to continue. He wins a huge variety of items: bottled salt, soda, bath gel, employee food materials, etc. The two zombie girls watch as he touches the ground, cursing his own sewer mouth. He wins 2 new items, one called Employee Regenerative Potion, and the other called Short-Term Mutation Prevention Medicine. And finally, he wins 2 new memory fragments, one from Xiaoyu and another universal. The boy then starts thanking the system, praising it as the savior of the universe, making the girls feel embarrassed. Our boy ponders who to give the universal memory fragment to and thinks he's very curious about Yanji's past, so he'll use it on her. The system says the exchange was successful, and the boy with shiny eyes calls the zombie so he can see her past. Suddenly, he finds himself in an empty desert. Right after, a huge explosion happens behind him, and he turns around asking what's going on. He sees people fighting with weapons against each other in a war-torn scenario. Looking around, he wonders where that could be. We see a bald man saying that it's no longer worth wasting bullets on that group of peacekeepers. They just need to burn them all. Then with wide eyes, our hero wonders if the girl was a terrorist. Suddenly a hand emerges from a pile of bodies. The girl then begins to slowly crawl out of the pile, looking around in fear. She looks up and starts dragging herself out and doesn't stop crawling for quite a while, always moving forward. A few seconds later, we see a flamethrower ignite. The flamethrower then begins to burn the bodies of all the people around where the girl was. Then we see the starry sky with a bright moon full of smoke and fire. Someone says that maybe they gathered the Peacekeeper Team's Snowy Owl just to take down the country's terrorist group. The man continues saying to her that they were almost annihilated just because she saved a little girl from the clutches of violence. He says that a small act of kindness can be enough to trigger an alert among those terrorists. And the most ironic part is that the little girl ended up working as a spy. Finishing, he says that out of 67 people, only 1 survived, and that's how the Snowy Owl disbanded. A flag flutters in the background as the man concludes by saying that thanks to the information she brought, the wolf group was completely destroyed. He lays a bouquet of roses in front of a grave, saying that the number of Snowy Owl troops will always be preserved in inheritance. The girl next to him looks on with an empty, emotionless gaze. The man turns his back to her and says that he's unable to do that. He continues saying the organization has prepared a vacation for her psychological support and that she could return whenever she wants. She then asks him to revoke the decision to preserve the Snowy Owl number, and he asks why. The girl then says that Snowy Owl will not be succeeded. She finishes by saying it won't be succeeded because it is made of each of the people who rest there in that cemetery. We then see a photo of the man she was speaking to. His name is Daniel Ye. Next, our girl is seen walking past a mural with several photos, including the man she was speaking with. She sits alone in a cafeteria and eats her lunch. We see the girl alone in the communal bathroom taking a shower. The girl then leaves the Snowy Owl Lounge alone, where it seems absolutely no one else is around. Yanji enters a room, salutes, and calls for Captain Chen. She says that she successfully brought back the report and helped complete the annihilation of the terrorist group. With tears on her face, she says that the Snowy Owl mission is complete. While our boy silently observes the scene, we see the girl looking into the horizon, thoughtful. The system notifies our hero of a new mission, which he says is an easy one. The mission tells him to visit the captain's house while he checks the address on the map. He confirms where the place is and tells them to head over. Before continuing, he says they'll need a new outfit change because Yanji's clothes are too torn. We then see the sun rising over the city's edge, giving the impression that some time has passed. He's tired and says it's very frustrating. The system says they're close, but doesn't say exactly where the captain's house is. And he wonders how he's supposed to find it. Taking a deep breath, he stops and says that maybe they're just unlucky today. And then finally he stops and thinks it's a good time to find a place to spend the night. As soon as he finishes saying that, he hears a nearby gunshot. Then we hear someone yelling for everyone to move quickly. We see a group of people, and one of the men with glasses keeps shouting for them to run faster. Our hero tells his girls to go stop the zombies while he goes to save the people. The girls then run toward the attacking zombies. The two have very similar attack patterns, jumping from above onto a zombie with serious cold looks. While one attacks with punches, the other attacks with kicks, both extremely lethal. One of the survivors asks who they belong to and where they came from, and the other replies that he's not really sure, but they're really strong. One of them looks back and says there's still a zombie behind them. Suddenly, that zombie is smashed to the ground by our hero, who lands on it with his new sword. The two survivors stare at the scene. The boy, smiling, asks if they're hurt and if they can stand up. One of the survivors with a trembling mouth says that no, they're not hurt. Still smiling, our hero says they would have been done for if it weren't for their help. The other survivor with glasses asks if he can help them. Our hero, looking doubtful, says it's fine. Suddenly, the system shows he has a new mission with a difficulty rating: to listen to the group and defeat a werewolf. Our hero wonders if it's really a werewolf or just another mutant zombie. The people from the survivor group respond that they don't know, but they've been trapped there for 4 days. All because they looked at it. Kowak says now he's interested. The guy says that as long as our hero protects him, he'll be able to take whatever he wants once they reach the camp. Smiling, he says he's going to collect on that, while the survivor with glasses says it's a promise. Suddenly, the sounds of combat seem to come from the building in front of our hero. Everything points to the werewolf they were talking about finally showing up. Kowak tells Yanji to take care of it. Then he puts Xiao Yu in charge of protecting the survivors while he goes to cover the other. And then, out of nowhere, one of the survivors pulls out a gun. Our hero, confused, looks back. The survivor with glasses has a manic look in his eyes, staring straight ahead. He then yells for everyone to go, while our hero notices that all of them now have either a firearm or a long-range weapon. Lost, our boy wonders what is going on. Yanji attacks furiously and hits the werewolf in the chest. The survivors take the opportunity and use their long-range weapons to shoot at the werewolf. Our hero tells them to wait because his employee is still in the line of fire. Clearly, the survivors don't wait and begin to open fire on the werewolf. Our hero tells Yanji to dodge quickly. The girl looks back with a blank expression but notices bullets coming her way. She narrowly and with great effort dodges the line of fire, using a car for cover. The werewolf that was in front of her gets riddled with bullets from the survivors. Our hero grabs one of the survivors by the shirt, angry. He complains that his employee was still in the front line when they opened fire, and the survivor says he was just trying to help. Annoyed, he lets go of the survivor's shirt and pushes him. He tells the survivors to find somewhere to hide because with that amount of gunfire, they're going to attract a bunch of zombies. Then he says he's a man of his word and will definitely keep the promise he made to them. Looking at Xiao Yu, he says to go after them. We see tall buildings with smoke coming out of some of them, indicating combat. The werewolf keeps running and howling. Yanji keeps running after him. The werewolf takes advantage of passing next to an old car, rips off its door, and throws it at the girl. Yanji is surprised to see the door flying quickly toward her. With incredible agility and strength, she grabs the door and spins, throwing it back at the werewolf. The door hits the werewolf's arm directly. With the force of the blow, it is launched through the air for several meters. It quickly turns and manages to brace against the wall to continue its escape. The fight between the two continues throughout the building. Kowak says it's injured and must be hiding on one of the floors. Sometime later, he says the beast's smell is so strong even he can sense it. It must be there for sure. Then he tells Xiao Yu to knock down the door. With a powerful kick, the girl easily breaks down the door. Surprisingly, we see a woman and a child inside the place. Kowak is clearly surprised and doesn't understand what's going on. The system then informs him that his mission has been updated and he's finally arrived at the destination. Captain Chen's house. After a while, our hero asks if the werewolf really saved her, and the woman says yes. She escaped the camp and it helped. She says the camp is run by a bunch of bandits who captured her and discarded all the elderly, leaving only women and children. And they also made it very clear that they only did it for fun. The woman continues, saying she would rather be eaten by zombies than stay there, so one night, some time ago, she escaped during a zombie attack. She says that desperate and in a horrible situation, trapped between zombies and a bunch of bandits, she met the werewolf. Meanwhile, our hero rounds a corner in the apartment and finds a certificate of achievement for a hunting dog named Tank. Our hero thinks that the rescue and hunting dog adopted by Captain Chen has evolved into a zombie. Meanwhile, we see Yanji looking at the werewolf in the room next door. Kowak says that the reason the werewolf appeared that night is because maybe it thought they were in danger and wanted to save them. He goes on to say that its life must be very sad because it tries to help as many people as it can, but the vast majority of them always end up turning into zombies. And then, remembering Yanji's memories, he says the werewolf really does resemble someone. Suddenly, a scream draws their attention. Someone calls for Tank's help. The survivor with glasses is holding a gun to the woman's face, surprised that Kowak's also there and telling him not to worry. Then he insults the woman and says she's one of his. Then inside the building someone screams, "No!" We see 3 people at the door of an apartment looking inside. The survivor with glasses holds the girl by the hair, saying that even if he had to search the ends of the earth, he would definitely find what's his. A voice then tells him to let her go. The survivor then ironically celebrates upon seeing that it's Kowak who appears. While they point their weapons at the boy, he says that no one in the world wants to see this, that it's enough for him to kill the werewolf as promised, and they'll pay him. With an evil smile, he says that if he wants, he'll even let him keep the girl. Kowak then takes a deep breath and tells himself that he's finally meeting the apocalypse. We see the enraged werewolf and Yanji putting her hand in front of it, not letting it pass or go after the survivors. While our hero thinks that dogs became human, but humans became worse than dogs. A survivor then asks him if that was the answer he was going to give and says it's a shame because he was even going to spare their lives. And then the man points and the other survivors charge forward as he yells to grab the 2 women. Kowak calls out to Yanji and Xiaoyu. With a clearly insane look, he tells them to go after them. 2 of the survivors rush quickly toward the girls. A blur passes near one's head and the other's face. And then, as quickly as it appeared, it vanished and made the men's heads turn at an angle that shouldn't be possible. The next second, the 2 employees land gracefully in front of the bodies. The men then let out a terrifying scream. 2 other survivors, upon hearing the scream, realize that the girls are zombies and that Kowak was taking care of 2 zombie girls. They then start to run in desperation. The werewolf then lets out a low howl and starts to want to go after them. But Kowak stops it, saying that a rescue and hunting dog shouldn't go against its own nature and should leave that to them. Meanwhile, one survivor is running while saying that anyone who takes care of zombies is crazy. He doesn't even notice, but runs straight into something and falls to the ground. Suddenly, seeing what he bumped into, he starts running in the opposite direction upon realizing it's Yanji standing in front of him. But a few seconds after starting to run, he notices that Xiaoyu was waiting on the other side. The boy screams desperately with nowhere to run as the 2 girls approach him. He keeps screaming while each of them grabs one of his shoulders. The girls then decide to tear off a piece of him for themselves. Another survivor is still running through the building's hallways. Suddenly, he notices a blur at the corner of the hallway. He sees an opening in a door of one of the apartments and runs in there. Desperate upon entering, he ends up slamming the door shut behind him. The man is frantic and curses his friend for not giving him a weapon, and thinks that clearly he wanted him dead. Then he thinks that he closed the door too hard. Maybe way too hard. He then brings his hands to his mouth, trying not to make even a breathing sound as he hears footsteps in the hallway outside the door. The footsteps are clearly getting closer and closer as he nervously watches the door. The footsteps begin to fade, making him more and more desperate. Unfortunately, the desperation was so great that the guy ended up wetting his own pants and wonders if she's gone, and that it seems like he's safe. Then he starts to hear the dripping sound from his own pants because after relaxing, he couldn't hold it in anymore. A second later, a hand bursts through the wooden door beside him. Through the hole, we see Xiaoyu's expressionless face, always looking inside. She seems to notice the boy next to the door and shows a faint smile. The survivor with glasses keeps running desperately through the corridors. He turns around, pointing his gun down the hallway, and asks Kowak if he's not worried about integrity since he's hunting his own client. Our boy says he's not worthy of being called human, so he doesn't consider him a person. The man becomes slightly desperate when he sees that his pistol is out of bullets. Still running, he throws the pistol behind him on the floor. As he runs, he explains that in the apocalypse, they fight and risk their lives to give food and shelter to women. Then turning a corner, he asks what's so wrong about using them as toys from time to time as a form of trade. Kowak turns the corner behind the man with glasses quickly. Then he finds himself entering an apartment. Next to the entrance door, there was another door where the survivor was hiding with a knife, and he sees the boy passing by. Taking advantage that the other didn't see him, he jumps at him with a knife in hand. The survivor jumps on him with a knife in hand, yelling and asking if Kowak is trying to send him to his grave. The boy manages to place his feet on the man's stomach, knocking the wind out of him. Seeing what Kowak wanted to do, the man hurries to try and strike him. The knife passes very close to our hero's face. Then we hear a loud noise. We then see our boy standing and the man thrown backward, lying on his back on the floor. Our hero says he's not only going to stop him, but all the other members of the camp as well. Wiping his face, he once again states that he will deal with every one of them. The survivor starts laughing and says that Kowak may have 2 monsters with him, but the others have firearms or psychopaths who escaped from prison. Our boy says none of that matters as he draws his sword. The other starts trembling and yelling, saying that everyone in that apocalyptic world is crazy. Since our boy shows no reaction, he yells again, curses, and charges at him wildly. As he gets close, our boy puts his hand on the man's face. Using his body and with his hand on the man's face, he throws him to the ground. Then he drives his sword into the floor next to the man's head. Kowak says that this world no longer has laws or morals, that humans are making their own laws and following their own nature. He goes on to say he's not any kind of protector of justice, but his apocalypse rules are exactly the opposite of the man's. Then raising his sword, he says he is nothing more than that. We then see the hallway while hearing the man scream. Kowak standing says it's now time to think about the next step. Then we see a man tied by the feet hanging from a pole with zombies around trying to reach him. He screams and begs for help, pleading to be released. On the rooftop of the building, a man speaks to the girl tied on the ground at his feet, asking how she feels watching her boyfriend being eaten by zombies. The girl, voice trembling, begs for mercy and says she won't run anymore. The man then steps on the girl's face, telling her to stop babbling. He says the only reason she's still alive is because she can serve him and asks how she dares to talk back to him. The girl on the ground, desperate, screams for him to stop and calls for help. He reaches out his hand toward her smiling and says they're about to have some fun. Then we see the man's hand flying through the air. The man on the ground screams in agony. Then we see Kowak the werewolf and the two zombie girls are on the rooftop of the building next to them. The man who is on the rooftop is suddenly falling. He falls near his friends who ask what the hell is going on. One of the friends asks the other why he fell, while the other notices that one of his arms is missing. Then one of them points upward and asks who that is. We then see our hero saying that he's the one who's going to finish all of them. He also says that if they call him Master Kowak, he'll send them to their grave even faster. Soon after, we see the two zombie girls launching their attack and grabbing one of the men by the face. Xiaoyu throws a man she grabbed by the face against the building wall. One of the guys brave enough jumps on Yanji. She quickly dodges the man's attack. She hits him from behind, also sending him flying toward the building. Next, we see the two hanging with half their bodies inside and half outside. A person who's trapped calls someone else saying there's a fight going on outside, but the other tells her to duck or she'll get hit too. Then we see the metal door with bars completely shut. She repeats again for the other to get down. Suddenly the door bursts open behind her. A man is thrown inside, hitting the back wall. Then we see our werewolf with a serious face entering through the door. The little girl turns and with bulging eyes asks if that's the monster the other one was talking about. Meanwhile, we see the courtyard outside the building. One of the men is stammering and trembling in fear in a corner, telling his boss they won't be able to be beat. The other says that aside from the leader, all the others are zombies that the boy takes care of. Confidently, he says that even the best zombies will fear their new weapons, and then he asks to bring that weapon. Yanji smashes a bottle on the ground, shattering it completely. Then she throws it at one of the henchmen and hits him right in the face. Both she and Xiaoyu keep moving, defeating and escaping the cursed camp. Then we see the barrel of a gun turning toward the two. The guy on a mounted weapon on top of a car clenches his teeth as he pulls the trigger. The two manage to jump and dodge, but the shots hit one of the henchmen who was between them. The armored car keeps coming, firing nonstop. From above, we see the destruction the car and the weapon cause in the open courtyard. Kowak looks at the people he rescued and tells them not to leave no matter what happens. He turns to the guard dog and says he's leaving everything to him. The werewolf then nods affirmatively while staring ahead. Meanwhile, the tank crew keeps firing and taunting Kowak to show himself. The leader inside the car shouts, asking how they dare invade his territory, and tells his buddy on top to keep firing at full blast. They quickly see the werewolf beside the building circling the car. The guy on the gun atop the car sees the werewolf and asks if he thinks he's immortal while firing at him. The werewolf is then hit in several parts of his body. Then he remembers Kowak telling him that was a regenerative serum, and after injecting it, his wounds would heal much faster. He gives the injection to the werewolf and says he's leaving all of that to him because he has the duty to protect everyone. Next, we see all the bullet holes quickly regenerating on the werewolf's body. The werewolf is then able to run quickly and circle around the car. Meanwhile, Kowak yells that this is the moment for his zombie girls. As we see them positioning themselves, he says this is the only chance they have, and he adds that they have to make it. The gang leader clenches his teeth, saying they have guts. He spins the steering wheel quickly, causing his shots to spray in every direction. One of the shots grazes the middle of Xiaoyu's hair as she continues heading toward the car with a surprised look. The man controlling the weapon screams and keeps firing wildly in all directions. But not for long, because Yanji drops onto him with a piece of a manhole cover, making him stop. Then we see Kowak's shadow in the window of the armored car. Next, he rips off the door with one hand and throws it far away. The gang leader is inside, begging not to be sent to his death, saying he'll give anything Kowak wants. Kowak asks calmly if he's finally feeling fear. Our boy turns his back and tells him to remember that feeling of fear well, to bury it deep inside his body, while the man thanks him for the mercy. A few steps later, he stops and says to take all those feelings with him. To hell. Then he turns around and strikes the gang leader's head. Sometime later, they cleared out the entire bandit hideout and rescued all the prisoners. They also cleaned Captain Chen's house and locked all the doors. Then we see our boy with a smile on his face and his two zombie girls behind him as he says it's time to move on. He also told the survivors to leave the city and head north, hoping to meet up with Meng Dai's group, and Tank decided to stay behind and escort them. Looking at the blue sky, he thinks and firmly believes that at some point in the future, they'll meet again. Smiling, he thinks that his mission is finally complete and wonders if the dog is a new species he's never seen before. The boy stops to think about the situation with the zombies and how little he knows about it, and he considers going to the Disease Control Center to find out more. Thinking about all the work it would take to get to the CDC, he ends up giving up and says he doesn't understand any of that. and will only think about it when necessary. The system informs him that his mission has been completed and that he received 30 employee loyalty points as a reward. All smiles, he says he can't wait to see what happens when the loyalty level reaches 100%. Suddenly, the system notifies him about the daily interest calculation and informs him that his current payout is 413 points. Another notification pops up saying that he canceled a Class B mission 3 days ago, and as punishment, the system will deduct 10 times the point value. He becomes desperate upon noticing that due to the lack of points, 5% interest has been applied to his debt. Once again, he remembers scenes from the past he'd like to forget when he went to the bank to ask for a loan and had the request denied again. Nervous and flustered, he tells himself to forget it and to move on, while the two zombie girls look at him with confused faces. He then thinks about retrieving Xiaoyu's memory fragment and starting a new mission. He then commands the system to activate the second memory fragment of the zombie girl. A bright light makes him close his eyes. Reopening them, he thinks that it's always so bright when entering a memory that he should buy some glasses for next time. We're then met with a giant rainbow birthday cake. Suddenly, we see her parents and her brothers smiling happily, congratulating her. Our boy stands still smiling, wondering if that's really the girl's family. He even wonders where she is. Next, we see the girl's mother irritated, looking around and asking where the food is. Our zombie girl is in the kitchen apologizing and says she'll finish quickly as she chops vegetables on the cutting board. The little boy complains to the father that his sister bought the blue soda, but he doesn't want blue soda, he wants the red one. The father, fiddling with his phone, asks the boy if they're not the same thing. The boy then starts making a huge scene saying they're different, yes. He begins to thrash and scream that he wants the red one. The girl coming into the room has her face splashed with soda when the little brother points his cup at her and says, "It's all her fault." She is caught by surprise with the soda on her face and tries to shield the plate of food in front of her. With an expressionless face, she stands still while the soda drips down her face and blouse. The mother then asks why the girl is just standing there and tells her to go buy the soda for her brother and clean up the mess. Seeing that the girl wasn't reacting, the mother asks if she thinks it's unfair and says that the brother got mad because she bought the wrong thing, so she deserves it. Still standing there, staring in disbelief, she gives up and says she understands. Then she leaves the house, slamming the door. Our boy, who watched the whole scene unfold, makes a serious face. Next, we see streetlights with snow falling. We see her approach a 24-hour convenience store. Xiaoyu comes out of the store with a bag in her hand. The bag contains only the red soda that her brother wanted. In her other hand, the change from the soda. She clutches the change in her hand angrily, and suddenly she turns around to re-enter the store. We again see the streetlight with snow falling around. Then we see a very beautiful plaza during a snowy night. A match is struck in the midst of that cold and damp night. Then a candle is lit. Xiaoyu is kneeling in front of a bench, saying that it finally lit. Then we see a small tart with the candle stuck in it while she sings happy birthday to herself. Happy, she leans forward to eat her birthday tart. Kowak watches her from afar. She tells herself to make a wish and says she wants to save enough money for university, find a good job, and have her own house. With her hands together in front of her face, she says again that she wants a real house. Our boy continues watching from afar with a serious face. Then a few seconds later, she blows out the candle, making it go out. The system shows a new mission to celebrate Xiaoyu's birthday, difficulty D. Our boy then places his hand on the zombie girl's head. He says that even if there weren't a mission, he would still make a cake for her. Right after, he wonders why she only got a birthday cake. He says that even if it's the end of the world, he's going to throw her a proper party. Several scenes follow with him pushing the girl in a shopping cart. She's stuffing herself with sweets in a store. The girl, clearly too strong to play with that toy, hits it and makes it explode. With a toy gun in hand, she's firing pop shots at cute animals. Wearing a funny costume, she dances with a giant inflatable mascot, clearly drooling at the sight of cotton candy in front of her. She also got a haircut from the other zombie girl. The girl picked new clothes for herself, getting a beautiful new look. Meanwhile, happy, our boy and Yanji raise scorecards with the number 10. Sometime later, Kowak appears dressed as a giant red chicken. Xiaoyu, stunned, drops her scorecard while Yanji throws hers on the ground in frustration. While he's inspecting what's in front of him, the zombie girl prepares a knife, as if to say she's about to feed on him. Then we see a closed photo booth. The two zombie girls enter the booth with their emotionless faces. Our hero, not wanting to be left out of the photo, decides to enter too, squishing the two. Yanji grabs his head and pushes it against the camera, leaving him clearly distressed. The photos start printing, and all of them come out very funny with his face pressed up against the camera edge. Xiaoyu stands outside looking at the freshly printed photos. Even with her blank and expressionless gaze, she seems to be thinking about something. Kowak calls her and tells her to stop daydreaming. It's time to go. The girl then turns and runs after them. The boy tells Yanji not to take that cake because it's been 2 months since the apocalypse started, and it must be spoiled. Then he reveals that the reason they're there is so they can make the cake themselves. And then Kowak thinks that once the cake is ready, Xiaoyu's loyalty will shoot through the roof. On one side, they have all the necessary ingredients to make a cake, and on the other, a recipe book. Next, our hero asks Yanji to bring the eggs. Seeing the eggs fly and smash against the wall next to him, He says he'll get the next ones himself. Suddenly, he looks at Yanji and sees she's holding a sack of flour over her head, ready to pour it into the bowl in front of her. She's clearly upset that he's criticizing the incredible job she's doing, while he thinks it's obviously his fault and that she should rest. While cracking the eggs, he lets the shell fall in and dumps 1 kilogram of sugar into the batter and, of course, adds way too much water. After a lot of effort, he realizes it was naive of him to believe he could make a cake on his own, and that maybe he'd have better luck spinning a roulette wheel. Then he remembers the scene he saw in the girl's memory. Sitting alone in front of the bench and gives a slight smile, he stretches out and says he's going to try again until he gets it right. 100 years later, but really only 6 or 7 tries. Koak stands proudly in front of his perfectly made cake batter, which he finally managed to make on his own. Happy, he heads toward the door, thinking that now all that's left is to bake it. He's glad the generator is ready, and with his hand on the plug, he thinks now he just needs to connect power to the whole store. Next, he plugs the power cable into the outlet. As soon as he turns on the power, a loud sound starts to play, and music reaches his ears. Uneasy, he notices that the store has a connected sound system. The music starts blasting loudly from the speakers outside the store, and obviously all the zombies in the area turn to look in that direction. Our boy starts to become completely desperate, knowing what's about to happen. Countless zombies begin marching furiously toward the music. The zombies run quickly in the direction of the sound. The power cable is quickly pulled out of the socket. Our hero, with the cable in hand, says they were too careless, and tells them to prepare to fight. Xiaoyu, now in a new outfit, runs and gets into position. Our boy looks at her and says that today she won't need to fight. Then summoning his sword, he tells her to leave everything to him and Yanji. He then says it's a new company policy for employees to have a day off on their birthday. So he tells the other to take care of all the zombies inside while he shuts the door. Yanji wastes no time and immediately starts handling the zombies. Koak runs desperately to the door and sees that many zombies are still coming their way. As soon as he closes the door, the zombies slam into it, and he wonders why they have to give him trouble today of all days. He notices that Yanji is using a utensil she shouldn't be to fight the zombies, used for the cake, not on them. She looks at the counter, grabs another tool, but our hero says that one also isn't a weapon, and she should leave it on the counter. Then the system says it has stopped an employee because she showed the intention of attacking the boss, while he says he worked on that for hours. Still, with no expression on her face, she starts launching plates and cutlery as weapons. Basically, she manages to hit all the zombies with her super powerful plates. Meanwhile, Koak pauses to think that just baking a cake is kind of boring. A few seconds later, he has a brilliant idea. He had asked Yanji to take Xiaoyu to the top floor and says he'll be there soon to meet them, and the girl waves and takes the other's hand. Before she goes up, our hero calls out to Xiaoyu and tells her that after she reaches the top, she should close her eyes and wait for him. Then the two girls run toward the top of the building. We see a few cars stop and a giant truck in the middle of the street as Koak says he's come up with a brilliant strategy. Sometime later, we see him smiling, saying the cake is ready and everything is prepared. The system shows Yanji's status window, and then we see that he's activated collaborative work mode with her. He had never activated this collaboration mode with Yanji before, and holding the cake in one hand, he prepares for what looks like a sprint. And then, starting his run, he thinks that the sensation is completely different from when he collaborated with Xiaoyu. The collaboration with Yanji is completely calm and clear. Looking at the number of zombies in front of him, he says that he can do it. He steps on the faces of zombies while holding the cake in his other hand and says that no one will stop him from delivering that cake. Right after, he shouts even louder that no one will stop her from eating her cake. Dodging a zombie attack, he says that no one will be able to force her to wait any longer. He throws the cake into the air and uses his sword to strike down countless zombies before it falls back. And in the next second, he manages to catch the cake and balance it again in his hand. At the top of the building, Yanji continues fighting countless zombies alone. Xiaoyu stands in a corner just watching the fight. She then follows the order of her boss with her blank gaze and closes her eyes. Koak thinks that even if he feels bad using all that fuel, making his employee happy is much more important. We see that he has lit several candles connected to a bit of gasoline. And in the end, he throws a lit birthday candle backward. Then he yells for Xiaoyu to open her eyes. She, still with her eyes closed in concentration, starts to open them slowly. At the exact moment when the candle is flying toward the puddle of gasoline, the fuse is attached. The second the flame touches the gasoline, a huge explosion occurs. And then we see that the entire street lights up, shooting fireworks in all directions. Then smiling, shouting, Koak says that this is his present for her. Limited edition Apocalypse birthday fireworks. The girl, eyes wide in disbelief, stands watching the colorful display. Yanji also keeps watching while holding a zombie in her hands. Koak then runs over and brings the cake to Xiaoyu, saying the frosting spread nicely. Showing her the cake, he promises to always bake her a cake on her birthday as long as he's alive, and invites her to make a wish. The girl, who had been serious until then, manages a smile. Our hero begins to sing happy birthday to the girl as the candle flames go out. The system informs that Xiaoyu thought the cake tasted strange, but that she is kind and says nothing. In the view of a sea with several combat zones, we learn that cities developed a lot in recent years, especially due to high-class industries. Because of economic growth, the old city was replaced by residential areas, while the industry was moved to new cities. However, the basic resources are nothing more than leftovers that remain after the outbreak, so our hero decided to head to the old city. We get a summary of the adventures so far. It's been a month and a half, and he has already completed 89 out of 100 missions. Behind our hero, a little boy calls out. He then asks how the bridge is, and we are informed that his name is Hao Yin, and that Koak met him near the river a few days ago. Our boy says there's bad news because the bridge is broken, and they won't be able to cross it even using a raft. Then we return to where Hao Yin's group is temporarily staying. This is the leader of Hao Yin's group, and our hero has been working with them since they met. The leader thanks him for the information, and our boy asks if they discovered anything. Another man who was there says he found a boat near a river. Koak was surprised and asked if the boat isn't broken. The man says it's a cruise ship and that the engine doesn't seem damaged, but it's out of fuel. He says that now they have to find fuel and that the resources at the base will only last another 2 or 3 days. The leader smiles and asks if Koak can take care of that for them, since he and his lovely helpers are so strong and they'll just get in the way. Our boy says he knows the leader just wants to conserve energy to get the people to the boat and that between them, the guy could be direct. Smiling, the leader says our hero is very straightforward and adds that once he gets the reward, it won't be bad. Turning to leave, Koak tells him to keep bringing resources to the boat, which will probably be finished before nightfall. Passing by the zombie girls, he calls out to them, saying they're heading out. Hao Yin watches the scene from a distance with a curious look. Right after, he asks our hero to wait and says he's going too. Our hero, with a bored face, thinks that the more time he spends in the apocalypse, the more irritating human beings become. Sometime later, we see a gas station full of zombies. We see Xiaoyu with her fist charged with red energy rushing in to attack the zombies. She releases her energy, completely covering some zombies in front of her. Her strike leaves a trail on the ground and knocks several zombies into the air, practically incinerating them. The system shows us that Xiaoyu gained this skill called Heavy Cleaver, that significantly increases her combat abilities, but has a fixed cooldown time. Our boy watches proudly, saying that this new power can compare to her first one. That's how strong it is. Hao Yin is amazed by Xiaoyu's power and asks if it's kung fu and if she can teach him. Our hero grabs the boy by the shirt and asks why he wants to learn that and tells him to hurry up because they need that fuel. Meanwhile, we see the zombie girls working and fighting to clear the area. He enters the gas station store and says he'll check it first and asks the boy to find a few things they can use. The boy compliments Koak, saying he's very kind and that it's the first time he's seen someone volunteer to go straight into battle in this apocalypse. Our hero says he's a businessman, he helps people, and they give him rewards in return, which has nothing to do with kindness. The boy says that making deals with them is kindness, because Koak is so strong, he could just take whatever he wanted and wouldn't have to go through all that trouble. Our protagonist asks if that's really what he thinks, and says he himself doesn't believe that, and states that it's a surprise Hao Yin has survived this long. Koak began to think that even though the kid talked a lot when they worked together, he had already noticed his sense of observation and execution. Then he gently smiles at the boy and says he's glad he survived. The boy, who had been serious, smiles and closes his eyes in gratitude, saying he's also happy to be alive, and adds that he's even happier he didn't dig his own grave. Our hero says he didn't quite understand that last part, but the boy lies, saying he said Koak looks really handsome. Our hero then starts getting genuinely annoyed by the boy's chatter. So to try to get rid of the kid, he says there's an overturned car at the entrance and asks him to check its gas tank. The boy quickly salutes and says he understands, while our hero can't wait to finally have some peace and quiet. The boy then goes outside, sees the overturned car, and realizes he'll have to climb on top of it first. He puts the gas canister down and starts climbing onto the back of the car. We see a zombie's hand beneath the car watching the boy's feet. Next, we see the zombie's head emerge from under the car as the boy continues climbing, apparently unaware. Suddenly, the boy lets out a scream and leans against a metal grate that makes a concerning noise. And of course, the grate was rotten and can't hold his weight. Before he could fall any further, Koak arrives and grabs him by the foot, sarcastically saying he's very cautious. With a trembling voice, the boy says there are zombies under the car and warns him to be careful. Koak curses and asks why he's worrying about others at a time like this. He continues saying that he already dealt with the one in the car, but there's another big one. The boy asks how big while we still see the 2 zombie girls at the gas station. And then on the roof of the gas station, we see a massive mutant zombie. It moves and releases smoke from holes in its body. Then it turns toward the girls, flames glowing behind it. The boy looks up in fear, asking what that thing is. The giant mutant zombie then jumps and prepares to strike. Its fist fills with energy as it releases a massive explosion in their direction. Xiaoyu easily dodges the explosion aimed at her, but right after, she notices the mutant zombie is already on top of her with its glowing fist again. It releases another explosion from its hand as she dodges again, but the blast heads straight for the gas pumps. Koak panics when he sees the explosion is going to hit the pump. He immediately grabs the boy and jumps, trying to escape the resulting blast. The energy touches the gas pump and causes a massive explosion. A few seconds later, Koak asks if the boy is okay, and the boy stammers, saying yes. Desperate, he asks our hero what they're going to do now, because the zombie seems way too strong for them. Our protagonist agrees and says they really can't continue like this. Then he stands up and tells Hao-yin to leave first. Seeing the boy's concern, he says it's fine and that if the boy stays, he'll just be a distraction. The boy understands that he'll leave with the fuel he managed to get and prepare everything. As he's leaving, he keeps talking, saying he'll wait for our hero. Then, sword in hand, Koak breathes and gets ready. Next, he leaps into battle. In the next moment, we see all three of them charging at the mutant zombie and attacking. The zombie is truly massive and seems to be handling the three of them at once quite well. Our hero is surprised to see that it really managed to defend against all three attacks at the same time. The zombie releases smoke into the face of our hero, who had attacked from behind. The zombie smiles and then explodes the smoke it just released in our hero's face. We see Xiaoyu with her arm injured trying to recover. Next we see Yanji also trying to stabilize herself after the explosion. Our boy thinks that this mutant zombie is much stronger than the others, that things aren't looking good, and at this rate they'll lose. Looking at the monster, he then thinks that at the very least he needs to take one of its arms. Meanwhile, at the camp, we see the boat at the dock. Someone informs the leader that the fuel has already been put into the boat and that the signal was sent to let the people of the camp know. Hao-yin is happy and says that's great, and now they just need to wait for everyone aboard the boat and for Koak to finish off that giant mutant zombie. The gang leader then asks what mutant zombie. Next, from the boat, they look toward the coast where a lot of smoke is rising. Looking more closely, we see Koak and his group running from the mutant zombie. Hao-yin then smiles and tells the leader that our protagonist is coming. The leader then looks to the side, thoughtful. Again, we see our hero's group running from the mutant zombie, now missing an arm. While this happens, the mutant zombie grabs a regular zombie with its hand. It puts the zombie where its other arm used to be. That zombie begins to merge with it, regenerating its lost arm. Our hero wonders if it's the kind that fuses with other zombies and thinks, at least it's good there aren't that many zombies on the way. Right after, he thinks that all they have to do is reach the boat. And then he finally stops to look out to the sea and sees the boat in the distance. He exhales and with a trembling voice, sees that they really left. The system shows the rank B mission to escort the commissioner to the boat as completed. Then our hero stays silent for a while, and thinks, then calls the two zombie girls and tells them to execute Tactic C. He yells, cursing, and draws the mutant zombies' attention. They stare at each other for a while. The zombie finally impatiently jumps to pounce on our hero. Yanji sees the opportunity and throws something at the zombie. She hits the target square in the chest of the giant. At the same time, Xiaoyu comes down from above with her kick prepared and aimed. The monster manages to block the attack with its arm. Suddenly, a tear starts to open on the monster's shoulder. An eye opens on the shoulder of the giant mutant zombie. But not giving the monster time to breathe, our hero comes in with his sword, aiming at the other arm, while looking at the boat and thinking that he believed again in the same promises and in cooperation full of lies. While striking the zombie full of rage, he thinks of the fake friendships and the same thing that's always happened in the world. After defeating the monster, he finishes by saying he's tired of it all. And then he hears a noise behind him and decides to look back and sees a horde of zombies coming toward them. But it's not just zombies, there are people running, saying the boat left and didn't wait for them. And now they're dead because they have nowhere to go. They run from the monsters while screaming and begging for Koak to save them. One of the men is finally caught by one of the zombies while calling out his name. With a cold look and seeing the man being caught, he says he doesn't want to help. We see a scene of a group of survivors running while one of them is left behind, and the zombies begin to pile on him. In Greek mythology, Sisyphus suffers the punishment of pushing a rock to the top of a cliff. But the rock would eventually fall once it reached the top, so he would have to push it again and again forever. Our hero doesn't want to be like Sisyphus. The system shows a new mission for him of difficulty C called Protect Me. Next, he sees countless system windows with the same mission for him. Our hero stops and thinks that if he saves them now, what will happen next time? Maybe the food will run out, maybe they'll get sick, or be betrayed. The rock will never reach the top of the mountain. The girl then finds herself surrounded and calls out for someone, begging anyone for help. She screams louder and louder for help. Our hero then jumps in with his sword and attacks the two zombies that were getting closer. She, crouched with her eyes closed and having already given up, decides to open one eye to see what happened. And then she sees our hero in front of her with expressionless eyes while defeating zombies. Our hero, in turn, while fighting off the monsters, wonders what he is doing. His body practically moves on its own to save the girl while he himself doesn't know the answer. He already knows that all of this is useless. And then two zombies come running toward him with hungry eyes and open mouths. And suddenly the zombie girls attack those two new monsters that were coming for him. Then again, we see them in action defeating zombie after zombie. Still pensive, our hero says to himself, so this is how it is. Remembering his friend Guangzhou, he says he's starting to understand him and recalls his words, saying that useless trash only belongs in the garbage. He reflects that when humans receive power and wealth, they truly begin to believe they are better than other living beings and lose their empathy. Once again, he remembers his friend Guangzhou and says to himself that he almost became like him, but that he would never let that happen. The girl sees that the hero is deep in thought and has stopped paying attention, so she points out that there's a monster behind him. The giant mutant zombie with eyes on its shoulder rises from the pile of rubble. As it emerges from the heap, the mutant zombie roars, showing all its power. Our hero, smiling, calls for the zombie girls. They then charge once again into the attack. So does the mutant monster, who also charges at them. The two of them jump together for another combined attack. As if they were one, they descended with their powerful kicks aimed at the monster. Meanwhile, our hero throws a rope at the creature's arm. The rope lands perfectly, wrapping around the monster's wrist. At the same time, he jumps with his sword in hand for a fatal attack on the zombie. The eye on its shoulder seems to stare directly at our hero, and this time the arm manages to block his attack. As soon as his attack is blocked, our hero shouts for Xiao Yu. She then comes in, charging her heavy cleaver attack in her fist. The girl jumps behind the monster and uses her strike, leaving half the beast on one side and the other half on the other. Watching the beast fall again, our hero says that even though the world is like this, and even if he has a power greater than man's, he hopes to continue living as a human being. One of the survivors points to the sea with a smile on his face, telling everyone to look. Then they see the boat coming toward them. The boy is inside, shouting Koak's name. About 10 minutes earlier, someone had approached the gang leader and said something was wrong with the boat. The leader told the boy that whatever the problem was, to take care of it quickly. Then he gained attention with a pistol in hand, saying he was handling the problem right at that moment. Suddenly, 3 gunshots were fired. Another member of the survivor team arrives at the scene of the shots and asks what's going on. Seeing the scene, he shouts, asking if Hao Yin just sent their leader packing. Then the boy questions whether trash like that could even be considered a leader. The man, still in disbelief, asks what the boy is talking about. Then the boy says that today he left the group behind because of the zombies, and that tomorrow he would do the same to leave them behind. He says they have absolutely no chance of surviving if they keep doing this. Smiling, he then says that with Koak they have some chance. We return to the present, seeing the boat approaching the dock. The boy then says he never thought the leader would trip and fall into the water, while Hao Yin says he also can't believe it. Our protagonist is happy to have convinced the others to bring the boat back, and Hao Yin says they were just afraid of the leader but didn't want to leave them behind. And smiling, he then asks the other survivor who saw the truth. Swift, sweating nervously and too loudly, says yes, that's exactly. Koak says that Hao Yin has grown up, and he asks if he gets some kind of reward now. And then the boy says he'll give him one of his precious lunches as a gift. Once again, we see our hero defeating zombies with his sword. We see that he is guiding a group of survivors through the city. They managed to reach the old city using the boat and found a group of survivors who had left their hideout to seek help. He then decided to help them. Looking ahead, the boy sees smoke coming from behind a building and assumes that must be the location of the camp the group mentioned. The boy thinks that's where there's a person capable of curing the bitten humans, and that there are some of them in this group. Even though he doesn't believe in it, any chance is a chance, and if in the end it doesn't work, he can at least help end their suffering. A mutant zombie falls in front of them. The people in the group point at the zombie and say it's another mutant, and that this is already the third one. The boy says that the longer the apocalypse goes on, the more and more mutant zombies appear. Our protagonist then tells Hao Yin and Yanji to take the group toward the smoke, while he and Xiao Yu provide cover. The two-headed mutant zombie roars and prepares to attack. We see a massive impact crash, raising a lot of dust in the middle of the city. Hao Yin is met with gunfire at the ground in front of him and stands frozen, with clenched teeth, scared. We see the size of the hole caused by the gunshot. A survivor from the camp shouts that they haven't received any orders, so they can't let any of them in. He also says that if they try to force their way in, he'll shoot. Hao Yin shouts while defeating a zombie, saying the group has no bad intentions and they just want to hide from the zombies. The guard says the leader isn't at the camp right now and he has no authority to let them in, especially with that many zombies around. Koak then arrives and says he'll handle the zombies if needed, just to let them in first. The guard then says for them to eliminate the zombies, and after that, he'll let them in. But if they try to break in, he'll shoot. Our hero thinks that his way of doing things isn't exactly wrong. Our boy then thinks it's as simple as defeating all the zombies there. So he activates collaborative work mode with Yanji. He then tosses her a rope and says they'll use tactical operation, corral, as she catches it mid-air. The girl then easily moves through the zombies using the rope her boss gave her. Koak tells everyone to get out of the way, and if they can't run, to duck. Hao Yin clenches his teeth as he realizes what's about to happen and helps a survivor. Both he and Yanji, each holding one end of the rope, finally circle around the whole group of zombies and head toward each other. As they get closer, we see they manage to form a loop around all the zombies present. They cross paths, causing the group of zombies to get closer and closer together. And then our hero shouts to Xiao Yu, saying it's her turn now. She begins charging energy around her. Then with great force, she leaps forward. With her feet slamming hard on the ground, she uses her heavy cleaver ability in kick, form, and releases a giant red energy line toward the zombies. The energy line she released with her kick lands perfectly across the heads of the zombies inside the corral. When the dust settles, our hero sees that all the zombies are lying on the ground. Looking back, he sees that many more zombies are approaching them. He gets ready and informs everyone that there are still many zombies coming. Our boy notices that the two girls have been fighting since they crossed the river and must be very tired, but there's nothing they can do. Zombies keep approaching in absurd numbers. Our hero faces them with his sword in hand, and suddenly a different monster jumps from behind him and lands with a massive crash, leaving a huge hole in the ground. Then another one like it jumps in the same spot, raising more dust and causing another big impact. Then we see that the new zombies that appeared are fighting against the regular zombies, creating major chaos and lifting a lot of dust. Our hero, noticing this, sees that these monsters are a species he's never seen before. In the middle of the chaos, we see 3 people in biohazard suits, saying the results seem acceptable for a first real combat. One of the men approaches a girl and asks if she's okay and if she was hurt, to which the girl points and says it was just a scratch. The person in the biosuit says it's not a problem even if they were bitten, because they already invented the cure and they will provide food and rest for everyone. Kowak looks and asks if he is the camp leader, taking the opportunity to thank him for helping them. The person inside the helmet says he's very kind and that he actually owes. Our hero, suspicious, doesn't understand what he meant by that, until he sees his friend Zhang greeting him and saying it's been a long time since they last saw each other. We see a hand pulling a boy's hair while asking if the boy doesn't have a lot of money. A boy has his foot on another boy's face, asking how he dares refuse to give money to buy cigarettes while the other begs to be left alone. Then the blonde guy says they're beating the boy not because of the money, but because of his attitude, while the other continues to apologize. The blonde boy says he doesn't care if it's going to happen again or not. He just wants to have fun right now. The boy on the floor then starts peeing on the blonde guy's knees. As soon as he realizes what's happening, the blonde guy gets pissed off, saying that it was disgusting. Then we see another boy finishing relieving himself. Our boy, 17 years old, tells the blonde guy to leave him alone. The blondie says it's not over at all, that the other peed on him, and that he's going to send him to hell. Before he can take another step forward, the door slams into his face, and another student walks out of the bathroom stall. Kowak hears the sound of the flush and stares at the guy who just came out of the stall. The other boys in the bathroom look terrified at the scene that just happened. The boy who came out of the stall then says that explains the noise. It was a bunch of rats in the bathroom, staring at the boys. He looks at our hero and asks if he needs help, and he says yes and asks back if the other guy knows how to fight. The blonde guy, his face swollen on the floor, asks his friends what they're waiting for and tells them to get them. The other 2 friends in the bathroom, each holding a broom, scream and charge at them. Our protagonist and his new blonde friend charge at them too. Then we hear from outside their shouts telling them to get away from him. After some time, we see the 2 of them standing and all the other boys sitting in front of different urinals after the beating they took. The boy who was originally getting beat up stammers and says thank you with tears in his eyes, and our protagonist says it's over now and he'd better leave. Kowak thanks his new friend and says he might have lost if he'd been alone, and the other guy says it's no problem, he just can't pee when there's noise. Our hero says that even so, most people would have run, and the other says, you wouldn't either, and both of them laugh. The boy then introduces himself as Zhang, a student from 2nd year, class 3. Our hero then introduces himself as Kowak, a student from 2nd year, class 16. They both reach out to shake hands, but both remember they haven't washed their hands yet and run to the sink first. Sometime later, the 2 were chatting and leaving school, becoming closer friends with each passing day. The 2 would compete with their grades and liked the same game. We see the 2 of them older, each holding a phone, probably playing the same game. A few years later, they even ended up going to the same university. We then see our hero winning first place in the university app development competition. We also see the 2 of them exhausted on the subway, leaning on each other to rest. Next, we see the city buildings lit up at night. Then we see them having dinner at a restaurant. Our hero with his mouth full says his theoretical biology app is perfect, and that it was all the competition's fault, and now that it's over, he'll have to change it again. Zhang, also with his mouth full, asks if he wasn't planning to start a company. Kowak says he was planning to, but things at home aren't good, and he wouldn't have money to treat his mother's illness if he started the company. Then he asks Zhang how things are going with him taking over his father's company. He says not anymore and asks why, since he was so good at managing people. Zhang pauses for a few seconds to think and says he thinks Kowak's app idea is very good and worth the investment. He then suggests the 2 of them start a company together, and that while one makes the product, the other handles administration. Zhang says he will clearly be the one managing the administration. Kowak says they'll be working together again, and his friend adds that they'll make it to the top 500. Then they clink beer mugs together, happy with their new idea. They formed a team and really developed an app, attracted investors, and not only that, they even founded a fairly big company. Then we see the scene of Kowak being stopped by a security guard while questioning Zhang, asking if they weren't really friends. Zhang is turned away from him, saying nothing. After a while, he says that Kowak is like the sun, shining on those around him, making everyone stronger because of it. Then turning cold, he continues saying that his friend is always very positive and never gives up, and that he's curious to see what will happen this time. Looking at his friend with a malicious gaze, he asks if he'll be able to rise again. Our hero on his knees watches as his friend and his assistant walk away from him, leaving him alone. The group finally arrives at the base. Zhang takes off his helmet and says they're back. Several people cheer and come running, asking if they're hurt, and if Zhang has finally returned. A girl approaches him crying, saying that the little boy told her she's useless, and it's only a matter of time before he throws her out. Smiling, he asks why he would throw them out and says that when they grow up, the camp will depend on them, so they should make peace and stop fighting. Kowak remembers his friend's malicious look, saying that trash deserves to stay in the trash as he watches that scene. An elderly woman asks if people like her, who can't work, could also stay, and he says he would never kick her out. Then, shouting to everyone, he says they have new colleagues joining them and to prepare food and water. Kowak continues standing still, stunned, watching everything happening around him. He again remembers the scene of his friend turning his back with the secretary, telling him to disappear. Our hero then turns away, thinking that his ex-friend is full of lies. Irritated, he calls out to Yanji and Xiaoyu, saying they're leaving. As he walks toward the door, a notification beeps. The system informs him that he has a new mission to stay at the camp and wait for activation. The system then gently informs him that he cannot refuse the mission or he'll be dragged away in about 30 seconds. Shocked, he wonders what's going on. He asks himself what happened and why the system suddenly generated this mission, and why the punishment is far more severe than usual. Then he asks himself one final question, whether the system is trying to help him or just messing with him. Suddenly, Hao Yin, who's been calling him for half an hour, comes up beside him and yells his name in his ear. Finally, catching our hero's attention, Hao Yin says they're moving the bodies to the examination room, and asks if he's coming with him. Then the boy thinks that since the system won't let him leave, he'll just take one step at a time and see what happens. Soon after, he calls out Zhang's name. Kowak says he'll follow them just to look around and asks if there's any problem with that. The man smiles and says anyone can enter. The examination room is open to all, without mentioning, of course, their relationship. We see a room with closed doors labeled as a temporary examination room. A man is on the bed screaming, restrained by straps that keep him from escaping. Hao Yin says something seems wrong with the man's condition. He's probably entering the third phase. Professor Kan says he's going to inject double the dosage and asks the girl to inject the stabilizer first because he's afraid it might trigger a stress reaction. With the syringe in hand, he tells the girl to prepare the patient's records, while the man behind him manages to break the strap holding him to the bed. Zhang, with a shocked face, asks how he managed to do that. The doctor barely has time to look back. Kowak was already between him and the zombie, pinning it firmly to the ground. Turning around, our hero asks if the doctor is okay. He says yes, and the secretary thought the hero had acted before they realized the man had moved. Then he asks Professor Kan if the man can still be saved. The woman says it's theoretically possible up to an hour after entering the third stage of mutation. Kowak tells them to move quickly. Finally, the syringe's contents are injected into the man's body. We see the patient slowly stop screaming after receiving the medication. Kowak, startled, asks if it really worked. Hao Yin happily says it's real. Even the color of his skin has returned to normal. Our hero stands there thinking that humanity might actually be saved. He also wonders if that's the reason the system wants him to stay there. Sometime later, outside the room, the professor thanks our hero, saying that if he hadn't been there, he might have been done for. Our boy, smiling, says it was nothing, but that he still doesn't know who the professor is. Zhang appears, saying he didn't have the chance to introduce them, that when all of this started, he had nowhere to live and accidentally ended up meeting the two of them. He continues explaining that after the two professors decided to stay in the city and develop the vaccine, they found this central laboratory. They then built the base there, and from time to time he would go out in search of new people to join the camp. Kowak then asks if the vaccine still isn't ready. His ex-friend says that currently it doesn't even have a 50% success rate yet. Our boy then thinks that maybe the system mission has something to do with the vaccine. Zhang stands still, thinking for a few seconds, and calls our boy. He starts trying to talk about the things that happened before and stammers. After a few seconds of silence, he suddenly yells, "I'm really sorry." In shock, Kowak asks what he just said. Zhang says it's about the things he did to our boy before, and admits that he knows he's not trustworthy. Kowak starts turning away, telling the other to forget it, that he knows he'll never forgive him. As he walks away, he adds that he should cut the disgusting drama while Zhang stammers, begging him to wait. Zhang starts running after his friend, saying he's telling the truth. Out of nowhere, a little girl appears, calling for Zhang and crying. With tear-filled eyes, she asks when she's going to see her mom and if she's okay. He kneels and comforts the little girl, saying her mother is getting better but still needs care, and that very soon they'll see each other again. He then tells the little girl to go play with the other children, and she runs off cheerfully, waving goodbye. Kowak smiles sarcastically and asks what the ex-friend did to her mom if he threw her out just because she was sick. Zhang closes his eyes and says that the reason the place is the way it is exactly because of the survivors. He continues, saying that everyone fulfills their roles by doing what they're best at, and only because of that, the camp is able to stay in this state. The man says that many people volunteered to help when they found out about the vaccine, and that the girl's mother was one of those volunteers. He then says that testing vaccines is a very dangerous thing to do, and that he wants to finish the work as soon as possible so people can go back to living with their families. Zhang says he actually only truly understood Kowak when he began researching the vaccine, and also realized how closed-minded he used to be. The people who live in that camp made him realize that only by helping one another can they survive one more day. Before all of this happened, he had only focused on power and money, just like his father used to. And it was after the apocalypse that he realized how meaningless all those things were. Then, full of anger, he shouts that his past self was a complete idiot. He goes on to say that he's not apologizing to earn Kowak's forgiveness, but because he regrets everything he did. Kowak, not believing it, asks what exactly he wants him to do. But Jang, desperate, says that's not what he meant. Our hero tells him to stop with the act and asks what his real objective is. Jang then says he'll tell the truth, that Professor Khan worked at the CDC. He continues saying that place is full of zombies and they've tried to get in many times but couldn't. Then he says he wants to work together with his friend to retrieve the data stored inside. Next, he bows and says he's begging for his help. Desperate, he says that they can only survive with the vaccine, and that he wants to end this nightmare. Our hero doesn't fall for the other's attitude and says he's fake. Jang says he's being serious, and if needed, he'll kneel right there, but our boy says he doesn't need to. Then Jang extends his hands and begs for help, saying that ever since they worked together, they've been able to accomplish anything. Kowak thinks that his ex-friend is at least right about one thing, that the world will end quickly if they keep living the way they are. Even if the world never goes back to normal, at least with the vaccine, they might achieve a peaceful life and slowly recover. Our hero thinks that maybe this is the reason the system made him stay here, and is also curious to know how they managed to control the zombies. Then after pondering for a few more seconds, he finally replies that he'll help his ex-friend. He then goes to approach his friend for an excited hug, saying that this is great, but Kowak tells him not to come near him. Staring at the other, he says he doesn't plan to forgive him, much less make peace. He's only helping because of the vaccine. Jang says he understands and thanks Kowak again for helping him. Sometime later, someone says to get ready to move out, and another confirms. Finally, the system window updates with a new mission: recover the virus research data. On a morning with a clear blue sky, zombies are thrown into the air. We see a strange, hairless creature with an open mouth moving rapidly. The creature holds a zombie down on the ground while several others are flung backward through the air. Kowak, watching from afar, asks what those two dog-like zombies are. Jang then replies that those two are the beginning of the research. According to Professor Khan, those two zombies have a certain degree of intelligence and can understand simple commands. He says that during the research they implanted chips into the creature's brains so that if they disobey or try to harm humans, they receive electric shocks. The man says this mission is very dangerous and asks why he didn't let the two women rest back at the camp. He replies that they are employees and that their combat capability is greater than that of his own zombies. Hao-Yin suddenly appears, saying that the two are war machines, while Jang adds that Kowak's been putting up with that boy since before the apocalypse. Jang looks at the girls while thinking that Hao-Yin really might be a good little sibling. Running, the group finally arrives in front of the Center for Disease Control. The professor says the necessary documents are on the 4th floor of the research department. They don't know how many zombies are inside and they'll have to avoid fights, while someone asks if the professor didn't make them a map before they left. Jang says he did, but the place is huge and they can't rely on that alone. Kowak notices the area near the stairs is packed with zombies. Looking to the side, Kowak was surprised to see binoculars. They then start discussing the best route to reach the research lab on the 4th floor. After deciding on a strategy, Jang says it's time to go. Kowak says that ever since arriving in the old city, he noticed the zombies seem to have different colors from those in the new city. Passing by some zombies on the ground, he says their color here is very strange. Hao-Yin notes that there are more mutant zombies too. Jang explains that the professor said that compared to the concept of the undead, zombies are more like an evolved species. There seems to be more and more zombie variety each day, and they've classified them into 2 types: normal zombies and mutant zombies. An evolved type zombie usually enhances itself and retains its original biology, as well as being selective with food, preferring live prey. The other type is the fusion zombie, which seems to merge with other beings, having different sizes and shapes and not being selective about its food. Jang explains that the ones they created for protection are of the fusion type between dogs and humans. It usually takes about 5 people to defeat an evolved type zombie, while fusion types could require anywhere from 1 to 10. He continues saying that he finds evolved type zombies more dangerous because they're smarter. But in the end, it doesn't matter what type of zombie they are. They all share the same weaknesses: UV rays and their brains. Jang stops with his pistol in hand, saying the instructions end there. They finally reach the 3rd floor. He gently opens the door and sees that there are countless zombies inside. Kowak whispers for everyone to stay quiet and try to move slowly to avoid them. He's thinking about why there are so many zombies and how he won't be able to protect everyone. They begin walking among the zombies, trying not to make any noise and staying alert for any disturbance. One man thinks that if he had known it would be like this, he wouldn't have come, and once he's back, he'll transfer to the logistics team. He also thinks that if he makes it out alive, he can brag to Xiao Mei and the others, and maybe then she'll admire him. Distracted, he ends up letting the tip of his weapon hit the wall, making noise. The zombies immediately turn toward him while Koak yells that they're screwed and tells him to run. Haoyin says they can lure the zombies to the research lab on the 3rd floor on the opposite side of where they need to go, and that it has an emergency staircase. Koak throws an alarm clock to Yanji, telling her to use it to attract the zombies to the right side of the hall and that they'll meet again on the 4th floor. The system reports that Yanji enjoys this kind of challenging work. She promptly sets off the alarm on the clock, and the monsters begin to look in her direction. Koak and Haoyin run, telling the girl they'll see her later. She takes off running with a ringing alarm clock in her hands. Finally, they see the sign indicating they've reached the 4th floor. They enter and close the door, and Haoyin says they won't be able to hold out like this for long. Koak then asks Zhang what they'll do now. He says that our hero and Haoyin should go to the research lab at the end of the department. Smiling, our hero asks if he trusts them that much. Zhang smiles back and says that's how he shows his sincerity. After a few seconds in silence, Koak turns and calls Haoyin to go, catching him by surprise. They enter and ask Xiaoyu to stand guard at the door. Walking among the files, Koak asks Haoyin how his leg is, and the boy says it's nothing serious. Next, our hero asks what the boy thinks of Zhang. Haoyin asks why he's asking him that. Koak says he seems quite trustworthy and that managing a camp of that size isn't easy. Haoyin says there's definitely something wrong with Zhang, that he seems like a version of Koak from the past. Clearly offended, Koak yells at him not to compare him with Zhang. Right after, he drops the subject and tells him to quickly find those documents because he doesn't know how long they'll last. Haoyin is reading a folder while Koak reads another, and both say almost simultaneously that they found what they were looking for. Then we see Zhang's group standing at the door waiting. Haoyin and Koak come shouting that they're back and got the documents. Zhang smiles and says he didn't expect everything to go so well. Koak shows the backpack saying they got all the documents while Zhang can't believe they could get all of them. If only a few would remain. He picks up one of the books while asking the boys if they really got the right books and whether they made sure of it. Koak hands him one of the books, stating the serial numbers are all correct, so there shouldn't be any problem. The man then says it's okay and they can return. A small tremor catches his attention. Koak wonders if it's the walls, but soon realizes it's the ground. Out of nowhere, the floor explodes, sending everyone flying. Koak manages to shout for Haoyin to protect his head. Our hero wonders if it was Yanji who did that and whether she found a strong enemy. He finds the girl in front of him and asks if it's an enemy. Right after, he sees what seems to be a fusion of several zombies into one and wonders what the hell that thing is. Koak observes the creature and says it looks very strong and they have to finish it off as quickly as possible. He tells Yanji, who is holding a stone above her head, to aim for the zombie's face. She then throws the stone toward the zombie, who tries to remove an iron bar from its chest. It finally seems to succeed in pulling out the piece of iron. Then a huge cloud of dust rises. Koak says that if they had arrived a little later, it would have already completed the fusion. Then we see a new type of zombie with 3 heads and 6 arms. Zhang quickly tells his 2 experiments to attack the enemy. The experiments then fly toward the new enemy. The enemy easily grabs one of the experiments with 3 of its hands. In the next second, it not only explodes one of the experiments, but does the same to the other. Koak activates collaboration mode and tells his zombie girls to attack and not let it fuse further with the others. Xiaoyu quickly jumps on the new creature. The creature opens one of its mouths and emits a terrifying scream. It also charges at great speed, and what seems to be less than a second later, it is beside Koak, landing a powerful blow to his face. Our hero is thrown several meters away by the force of the hit. The boy says he barely managed to be fast enough to block the creature's blow and wonders why it is so fast. He can barely recover from the hit when the creature is already on top of him again, with its mouth open. But this time, Yanji comes with a piece of stone and manages to hit the creature from the side. The power of her blow is also very high, sending the creature crashing into the wall on the opposite side. Koak says that the monster is too strong and he needs to focus, but the others are still there, so he decides to call Zhang, who is helping the other survivors. Our hero tells them to leave first, not wanting Haoyin to end up dying there. Zhang says there's no way he would want to leave first. With his sword on his back, he tells Zhang to go now and not delay the vaccine, further saying he's not going to be dragged out of there. The man then pauses for a few seconds, looking seriously at his friend. Then he decides to respect his friend's decision and tells him to return soon. After some time, Koak sees that they finally left and says he doesn't want them to see what's coming next. First, Yanji throws something at the creature again. Then Xiaoyu strikes the creature in the chest with all her strength. Moments later, the creature begins to regenerate the area hit by the 2 zombie girls. The creature lets out another terrifying scream. Koak thinks the monster recovers too quickly, and they need to deal enough damage in one blow to defeat it. He notices that Yanji's arm is injured and she can't throw stones anymore, and Xiaoyu's ability cooldown is too long. He was thinking and seems to come up with an idea about what to do with Xiaoyu's cooldown. Then he closes his eyes and says they have to try that. He then yells for Xiaoyu to activate her Violent God of War ability and Heavy Cleaver at the same time. The zombie girl promptly obeys and activates both abilities. A huge red glow begins to emanate from Xiaoyu's body. Then the girl starts coughing, suggesting that using both abilities is too much for her body. Koak then says she doesn't need to overdo it and tells her to get out of there quickly. The zombie girl lands a blow on the mutant creature, leaving a massive hole in its body. The mutant creature begins regenerating almost instantly. Koak sees that she did it, but the power isn't enough. Then he notices her stance and wonders if she can already use the ability again. He even wonders if while she's under the effect of Violent God of War, her other ability has no cooldown. The girl wastes no time and attacks furiously again. Koak is shocked to see the damage she's causing. The girl continues to attack the creature non-stop. A crack appears on the floor. The crack begins to widen at a dangerously fast rate. The floor can no longer hold and explodes. Seconds later, she is standing atop the rubble. Regardless of her effort, she remains expressionless as always. Koak says that Xiaoyu went way overboard and that the entire building is about to collapse. He then calls both girls to leave. Next, he notices that Xiaoyu has collapsed on the ground. He says she passed out from exhaustion after using that combo. The energy consumption was way too high. He says that Yanji has an injured arm and won't be able to help, and saving herself is more important. The system reports that Yanji refuses to abandon her companions. Koak doesn't allow any questioning, saying that was an order. Looking straight into Yanji's expressionless eyes, he tells her to trust him. She then stands there staring at him for a few seconds. Then she decides to obey the order and runs off. Our boy then breathes a sigh of relief. He decides to switch Xiaoyu's collaboration mode to Yanji, saying he's already tested it and only needs to be at least a kilometer away for it to work. The system then reports that the collaboration mode was successfully switched. The boy then starts to run. Part of the ceiling begins to fall around Xiaoyu, who is lying on a rock in front of him. The ground begins to collapse, and Xiaoyu's body starts sliding into the hole. Her body begins to fall, and Koak jumps after her. We then see his hand catching the girl's hand in midair. With his other hand, the boy grabs onto a pipe. Then we see him hanging, holding Xiaoyu with one hand and the pipe with the other. She starts to wake up slightly and he notices it. Our hero smiles at her, saying he caught her, so she doesn't need to worry. He adds that he will never let her go. Then he says, unfortunately, the situation isn't very good for a conversation. He lets go of the pipe, picks up the girl in his arms, and says they need to get out of there. They fall to the ground, kicking up dust. The boy then starts running at an astonishing speed while carrying Xiaoyu. He runs down the stairs and passes through a completely devastated area. As he runs toward the exit, the ceiling begins to collapse around them. Our boy focuses and says, there's just a little bit left. Then he sees the door and the light from outside getting closer and closer, and suddenly he wakes up in a bed full of bandages. He then complains about the pain of waking up so suddenly. Haoyin is at the foot of his bed and tells him that it's been 2 days since Zhang returned and saw him carrying Xiaoyu out of the building. Koak then realizes and asks how Xiaoyu and Yanji are. Haoyin says the girls are fine and that they're outside while we see children having fun together with the zombie girls. Our hero then asks if they were examined and thinks that he was careless. If they were examined, the secret that they are zombies would have been exposed. The boy smiles back and doesn't answer. Then he says not to worry because he didn't let the doctor examine them. After all, his wounds were more severe. Next he says that since the boy is full of energy, he must be fine and that he will go help in another area of the camp. Koak then smiles and thanks Haoyin for the help. The boy leaves the room, saying there's no need to thank him for anything between them. After the door closes, our hero remains still. Deep in thought for a while, he finally breathes in peace, saying that Yanji and Xiaoyu's identities weren't exposed and their injuries aren't serious. Then he opens the system window. He starts reviewing everything he gained in mission status and so on. The system reports that Xiaoyu's loyalty points to the company have reached 99%, and he will receive a memory fragment on the next roulette spin. Then he sees the system window asking if he wants to confirm the roulette spin or not. We next go to the scene of our hero accepting a roulette spin. He says he really did it, so when loyalty reaches a certain number, he receives a memory fragment. He wonders if the system wanted him to see what it's like to max out an employee's loyalty points, and then says it doesn't matter. Our boy touches the memory fragment and a strong glow appears before him as someone says that all that's needed is internet access. Then we see that the combination of augmented reality, virtual reality, and 3D come together to create a virtual world. The voice continues, saying it's more than just an app. From now on, it will pave the new path for games and other applications too. Our boy is in front of a door. He opens it a crack and hears that even if there are risks in that project, they're worth it because the company spent everything to develop it. An auditorium full of people listens as the voice continues, saying they must be honest because the salary is based on minimum wage. It continues, saying the compensation comes in the form of company stock and everyone who joins them will receive a large amount. He looks up with his mouth open in shock. As he looks upward, the other version of himself says he hopes everyone can put their faith in him. so they can work hard together for the company's success. Some people cheer happily, saying they want to join him in that project. The alternative version of our hero starts crying, saying he won't disappoint the employees at all and thanking them. Kobach says that if this is a memory fragment of Xiao Yu, then it means that at that time she must have been around. And then he finds her in the middle of the crowd, smiling and looking at that other version of him. Then he wonders why he himself has no memory of that moment. He sees another moment in a room full of employees working and wonders if she was also on the project team. He finally finds her and remembers that she was a new administrative hire, and that he was so busy back then, he never met her. Our boy remembers that in the beginning of the project, everything was going well. He says the equipment provided by the company's partners was very poor, and because of that, the project's progress came to a complete halt. He thinks that they could have simply solved the problem, but the other directors decided to suspend the project entirely. Our boy remembers that shortly after that, he went to Zhang to negotiate with them. In his memory, he tells Zhang that if they agree, they could get a new contract with a different supplier and the results would come quickly. A man sees Kowak opening the door and asks what he's doing there. The man continues saying that if he's there to talk about the project, the decision to suspend it has already been made, but our hero asks for a few minutes to explain. He starts by saying that cloud gaming services are up 70%, and that if they start development now, they can soar in the coming years. Kowak then goes on to explain his dream of creating an entirely new world using current technologies, calling it the metaverse. He says that this is the foundation of the company and that they only need to solve the supply issue in front of them, and then the future will be bright. One of the directors then asks Zhang if he thinks the same way. They exchange a look and our boy nods to him. A few seconds pass and Zhang says no, that he agrees with suspending the project and that this way there will be no losses. Kowak, trembling and shocked by the news, asks what his friend is saying. Zhang says he didn't expect the company to reach such a serious state and that he feels it was due to his excessive trust in Kowak. Bowing before the board of directors, he says he caused a huge loss for everyone and apologizes profusely. Then one of the directors says that if that's really the case, Zhang knows what he has to do. We see the eyes of the former Kowak transforming into the eyes of the new one. Because the project failed, everyone ended up leaving. A woman screams angrily, saying it was all Kowak's fault, that she didn't review the initial risk assessments because of him, and now she's unemployed. Another man asks what risk assessment, since someone else used 80% of the project funds with a corrupt supplier. Our boy, shocked by what he's seeing, begins to say that it wasn't like that. Someone else yells that maybe he was a scammer from the very beginning. Kowak says he's not a scammer and that all of them should know. Another man says he spent all this time working there and got nothing in return because of that. He doesn't even have money for food. People walked by calling him a terrible person. Suddenly Zhang appears, telling everyone that he tried to convince the directors but couldn't save Kowak's project, although the company is safe for now. He says that if the people want, they can return to their original positions. People then start to thank him and celebrate, saying how great Zhang is and how trustworthy he's become. In the background of everyone stands Xiao Yu, quiet and thoughtful. She leaves her company badge on the floor and walks away. Our hero then returns to reality, exiting Xiao Yu's memory fragment. Trembling with rage, he wonders if it was his fault for starting the project carelessly. He asks himself if he was the one who decided to invest all the project's money, cutting off the financial flow. Kowak continues to question whether there really was no hope for the project, and if that's why Zhang pushed him out to save himself and called him trash. The system then informs him that he has a new mission, to go to the company and apologize to his former employees. He puts his hand over his face and starts crying, thinking that maybe it really was all his fault. Our boy exits Xiao Yu's memory fragment world. The world closes behind him as he looks down in sadness. As he barely touches the wall, the system tells him to go directly to the mission location and that a special effect will be applied during that mission. His voice trembles as he feels the negative effect. His whole body feels wrecked, and even his mind and heart feel damaged. He says it seems like he can't postpone this mission, that he needs to fix things and go now. He tells Yanji to stay there and wait for him, but to protect herself. Then he reveals to her that he still feels like there's something strange about that camp. Next, we see the abandoned buildings of the city as he finishes the sentence, saying he hopes he's wrong about the camp. After walking for some time, he and Xiao Yu arrived at the company building's doors. Our boy says he can't even believe he walked nearly 10 hours under that negative special effect. Our hero stops and looks at the company's logo, saying that seeing that name again, he doesn't even know how to react. Arriving at the company, he says the system wants him to apologize to the employees, but he doesn't see a single body and has no idea what to do. Then some time passes with him inside his company. The boy manages to gather a few belongings like a badge, a cup, a hair clip, and a cupcake. He was able to find some items from employees he knew, but he isn't sure if all of them decided to stay in the end, and he'll need to check that on the computer. Xiaoyu kicks open the general manager's door. As the door opens, Koak immediately feels his body getting heavier. He senses there's something in there. He connects Zhang's computer to his portable generator. After a while, the login screen appears, asking for a password. The boy laughs and says he designed the entire company's system himself. Zhang thinks a few layers of encryption will stop him. He's dead wrong. He finds the employee list and thinks he needs to find if the mini printer is working, but finds the number of people laid off after he left suspicious. Then he finds something strange and wonders what it is. Our hero finds a folder with files about Zhang's parents and wonders, didn't he hate his father? Curious, he decides to open and decrypt the file. He finds several files, market research, employee terminations, and risk evaluations that are different from what he remembers. Our boy finds a file with the name of the company's corrupt supplier. He also finds videos and documents registering the company's equipment, along with the cancellation fees. Koak connects the dots, that the legal representative of the corrupt supplier is the same person as Zhang's secretary. The boy remembers it was precisely because of a supply problem that he was cut off, but the one responsible for everything was Zhang. He recalls that even Xiaoyu the intern received part of the company shares, and in the end it wasn't for the employees' welfare. It was a trap for him all along. He realizes that everything they saw before was just part of a truth built on top of lies. He finally wonders if that's why the system wanted him to come here to uncover the truth. Koak drops to his knees under the weight of the revelation. Feeling sick, he leans against the wall and tells Xiaoyu to hand him the tablet once the video finishes extracting, because he needs to see it. Our boy walks to the door with a very bad feeling about all of this. Looking outside, he sees a pile of bodies merged into a shapeless mass. With many employee badges, he asks himself how things ended up like that and then puts his hands on his head. Countless thoughts flood his mind, memories of employees wondering why this was happening to them. He says Zhang's original target was him, and he ended up dragging all those employees down with him when he was taken down. They then had nothing to do with it. Tears begin to stream down his face as he cries, begging for their forgiveness. Suddenly, Xiaoyu brings the tablet to Koak with the video playing, where a person asks if that thing still works. The person in the video celebrates, saying it really does work, and introduces herself to our hero as Liu Swenner. Then Liu says the team members had some things to say to him that they couldn't reach him, so they had to rely on manager Zhang. A man says there's only one thing he wants to say: stop being careless. Another man cuts in, saying he didn't think Koak would get fired so quickly and couldn't even find him to punch him. Then another employee says she saw him begging for a loan at the bank. A girl in the video says she has an aunt who works at the bank and might be able to help him, but that doesn't mean they've forgiven him. She continues in the video, telling him to start over and pay them back, and this time not to make the same mistakes. Several people in the video tell him to start again and make it right. They say he can't give up, and many of his former employees wanted to be in the video to speak to him. Many of them say they haven't forgiven him, and our hero, with a trembling voice, responds that he knows they haven't forgiven him. He puts his hand on Xiaoyu's head and says that before being forgiven, he cannot die in that place. Our hero says that he still has scores to settle with Zhang. He leans against the wall, smiling, and tells Xiaoyu to stay there. He'll handle the monster alone. As he opens the door, still smiling, he says he'll finish it real quick. The system reports that the collaboration mode for the Violent God of War ability has been activated. We see the massive mass of employees standing still, wearing a little tie. Our boy draws his sword and says it's time to let them rest in peace. With his other hand, he closes the door, leaving Xiaoyu inside the room. The mass then leaps at him, and our hero leaps toward the mass, sword in hand. He delivers a vertical slash straight down the center of the mass, splitting it in two. He sees a badge with the name Li Qixing and remembers they created the initial structure of the project together, always working overtime back then. Gritting his teeth, our hero says he still owes the guy a lunch. He slashes again, this time horizontally. Another badge, this one says Zhang Wen, who always cried whenever they had to kill bugs, and Koak wonders if he ever got that hair transplant he wanted. He says Zhao Zeng always worked like an immortal whenever he had an idea, without drinking or eating, and asks if he remembered to take his stomach medicine. As he lands another blow, he remembers Huligo, who always brought in coffee. He continues cutting through the mass, remembering his employees as we see their badges flying through the air. He remembers that everyone worked hard back then, and that all they needed was to take that final step for it all to succeed. Charging toward the mass, he thinks again. It really was just one small step away. Our boy continues slicing and executing the mass over and over again. Koak stares ahead with a serious look. He apologizes to everyone as he sees the badges of his former employees falling to the ground. Our hero reaches out and picks up one of the fallen badges. He thanks them again in the middle of the rain of badges. He laughs and says it was only because of their forgiveness and blessing that he was able to return to life as his true self. Xiaoyu then slightly opens the door and looks at him. The system reports that she was worried about him and secretly decided to watch over him. He smiles at the girl and says he's fine. The boy says they still have a long task ahead, printing photos of all the people who were part of the project at that time. A few hours later, we see a small mound of dirt with 2 sticks and a badge in the middle. All across the grass, he has laid out small graves with the badges and collected belongings of his employees. He then bows and tells them all to rest in peace, promising he will never forget them. He continues saying he really hopes that among them, there were some who managed to survive. Something starts glowing and catches his attention. The system reports that the first part of the mission is complete and important items will be stored in the museum. One of the badges suddenly begins to shine. The system announces that all the badges are now glowing and are being stored in the museum. He then looks up and wonders if that's the system's museum. He questions if the museum doesn't just store items, but things that are personally meaningful. Our hero realizes that for them, joining the company was something deeply important. He tells Xiaoyu that ever since the project failed, he kept wondering whether he had been a good boss. And he thinks he got his answer today. As a result, he's decided which path to take in the future. But before that, he'll carry the hopes and expectations of everyone and finish things with Zhang. The system then reports that the next part of the mission is to settle things with Zhang, and its difficulty level is S. We rewind slightly to 2 hours after Koak left on his mission at the camp. The professor announces that the vaccine has finally been improved. He goes on to say that the results from experiments 1 and 2 were crucial to its development. Zhang says that after expending so much energy, it's time to see the final result, while the professor suggests they go to the test site since there's just one final step remaining. Looking down thoughtfully, Zhang repeats, "Yes?" The final step, we see the professor and the man walking side by side, each with a briefcase. Haoyan is hiding and observing them from a distance, remembering what Koak told him, that the disease is returning and he's going out for a while to look for a cure, and that he still thinks something's wrong with Zhang. So Haoyan should be careful until he returns, and if anything feels off, he should talk to Yanji. Haoyan wonders where the two are going and what exactly this improved super vaccine is. He continues telling himself that he needs to take advantage of their absence to sneak in and investigate. We see the air vent of the central air conditioner, then a pair of hands remove the grate, opening a path. Haoyan drops to the ground and says he doesn't know how long they'll be gone, so he has to finish his investigation quickly. Looking around, he wonders where Professor Kan's office might be. Suddenly, he hears voices asking if the door is locked properly. 2 people respond saying of course it is, and since they're always the last to leave, there's never anything left to eat. Haoyan thinks it seems like everyone is gone and that he needs to move fast, but he's caught off guard when someone calls out to him. He turns and sees the professor standing there staring at him. She asks what he's doing there. The boy tenses up at the sight of her. She's about to say something, but Haoyan runs up and covers her mouth with his hand, stopping her from speaking. He raises his knife and apologizes, saying she shouldn't have gotten in his way. The boy brings the knife down toward her, but the professor reacts quickly and blocks the strike meant for her chest with her hand. Haoyan, still expressionless, realizes his blow was blocked and pulls the knife back. The professor asks where he wants to go. She'll take him, just don't send her to meet her maker. The boy smiles and says she wants to live, huh? He thought she was the kind of person who wasn't afraid to die. She says it's because she still has urgent things she needs to do. That's why she can't die here. They stare at each other in silence for a moment. Haoyan finally sighs. He smiles, points the knife at her, and says she can lead the way. The professor asks what he's looking for. She says she already searched the computer and the shelves. With her hand bandaged, she says there's nothing there but research materials. He replies that he just wants to investigate the place, that he's not looking for anything specific. The woman says she understands his concern, but the vaccine was developed carefully and improved with her work. There's nothing suspicious about it. The boy then asks what happened to Shauna's mother, remembering the little girl with teary eyes asking for her mom. The professor seems caught off guard by the question. She lowers her gaze with sorrow and says that some of the last volunteers passed away due to immune system rejection, and Shauna's mother was one of them. She says it happened too quickly and her mother died before she had the chance to save her. Professor Khan had to help her with the funeral because she couldn't handle it. She tells Haoyan that she couldn't bring herself to tell the truth to the child, but that doesn't mean Khan did anything wrong. She says the world is already messed up. What reason would she have to lie to him? The boy looks at her and says that, unlike her, the professor seems far more suspicious. He has tons of medical books about viruses, diseases, and human anatomy. Then standing in front of the bookshelf, something clicks for him. He asks why that book is among the medical volumes. Opening one of the books, a chip falls to the floor. He notices it and picks it up, saying so that's where he hid it and that the professor did a good job. The boy tells the professor that he's going to borrow the computer. Then we see a video. Someone yelling for a ventilator while another voice tells a third person to hang in there. He realizes this is a recording of the experiments involving Xiaona's mother and wonders why they had to hide it. The professor insists she already told him there's nothing strange about it. He smiles and asks if she really believes normal experiment recordings need to be hidden and tells her to keep watching. The video cuts, a voice announces that the third combat trial is about to begin. We see the zombified woman, her teeth clenched. Zombies are released as she prepares to fight. The professor watches in horror and asks what that is. The boy asks how she turned into a zombie if she had supposedly been buried, and the professor keeps denying it, clearly confused. He then asks why there were combat experiments if it was all supposed to be for the good of humanity. He keeps going, saying they just watched the footage. How can she really try to convince him to believe in them now? The woman is in shock, unable to say a word, staring at the video. He then continues working on the computer and asks why those files are hidden. The woman remembers Zhang saying that with that experimental data, humanity could be saved. She recalls a man telling her to run while being surrounded by zombies, handing her the results and saying that this would be the last hope. She remains open-mouthed, watching the videos as tears begin to stream down her face. She remembers an old man saying that he is useless at his age and that he only thinks of this as a contribution to science and the future of humanity. The tears begin to flow profusely down to her chin. Then the memory of the little girl's mother comes to her mind as she smiled and said she trusted her. She can't take it anymore and weeps uncontrollably, finally realizing what the true purpose of the experiments was. Again, the memory of the professor telling her to leave the little girl's mother's funeral to him haunts her mind. She clearly remembers the professor saying they would find a good place to bury her so she wouldn't have to worry. The professor slams her fist on the table, cursing and saying they deceived her all this time. The boy stands frozen, stunned by the woman's reaction. She says that every time she reported a problem, the professor and Zhang acted differently and never let her near the critically ill patients. The woman sighs, trying to compose herself. Quickly, she starts typing, and our boy asks what she is doing. She holds a hair tie in her mouth while saying that since they want to make biological weapons, using the sacrifice of so many people, she says she is going to destroy that place completely while tying her hair into a ponytail. The boy asks if she isn't going to make a copy because the vaccine is not complete yet, and the woman says she has already saved the necessary data. Confidently, she says that all the data she needs is in her head. The boy smiles gently and says she is no longer as flustered. She smiles and says they are now accomplices. The woman says time is essential, and while he burns the physical copies, she will destroy the digital data from the computer, and the boy agrees, saying it sounds good. Suddenly, they hear a voice saying it's strange that the door won't open and asking who's in there. Startled, Hao-Yin looks back and wonders if they have already returned. We hear the sound of people desperately trying to open the door now. Zhang tells the professor that someone must be inside and tells him to break down the door. The professor tells Hao-Yin to hold the door because all she has to do now is execute the delete command, and then it will all be over. The boy shouts, begging her to hurry because he won't be able to hold on much longer. Suddenly, we hear a loud crash and the door bursts open. Zhang and the professor are surprised to see Hao-Yin on the floor behind the door. The professor then, in shock, asks what the woman is doing in his office. She then says she is doing something that should have been done a long time ago and presses delete. The computer announces it is executing the deletion command. The stored vials begin to bubble. The boy on the floor looks and says she made it in time, while the professor screams in desperation as he sees the work of his life being destroyed. He begins to run toward her, asking if she even knows what all those recordings were for. She says she does, and that's exactly why she's deleting the recordings. The professor keeps running, saying they are necessary for the future of humanity. The woman yells, bumping into the professor, saying no, they are not necessary for our future. He says she doesn't understand that human beings are weak and will never survive. The man grabs a chair, saying she's an imbecile who destroyed everything. Then he raises the chair over his head and says she deserves to be dragged down along with the files she deleted. Suddenly, we see a syringe being injected into the professor's neck. Zhang, with his cold and calculating gaze, finishes injecting whatever it is into the doctor's body. The professor glances sideways behind him. Smiling, Zhang asks if there isn't any vaccine left over there. Then he removes the needle from the man's neck. The professor screams, asking if he understands what he's doing. Smiling, he says the professor should have saved that dose of the super vaccine he was developing using personal combat data. He then finishes by saying he will test it using his own body. The professor starts trembling, cursing the man in a shaky voice. Hao-Yin then asks why Zhang developed that, and he says it was obviously to have his own army because he is just a mere human and couldn't survive alone. The boy then says that he's underestimating himself. The man says he should understand because some things, whether in the new world or the old one, never change. He continues saying that the path to the future is always the path of survival. He goes on to say that the strong feed on the weak and that has never changed since the beginning of time. Only the method has changed. The weak serve as nutrients for the strong to dominate the world. He has always had his single goal, which is to win, whether by using Koak and his abilities before, or by stepping over a pile of corpses now. The professor then asks if from the very first time they met, the man already had plans to change the virus on purpose. He says yes, and thanks to Professor Kan's cooperation, it became a reality. Hao-Yin says the volunteers were just stepping stones, like Xiaona's mother. Then Zhang asks why he couldn't use the nutrients he cultivated himself. Smiling, Hao-Yin says that if that's the case, then he shouldn't blame the nutrients for rebelling. Then he releases something from his hand that looks like a small grenade. Zhang closes his eyes and shouts, "Smoke grenade!" He gets annoyed and says that's why he never liked Hao-Yin. He was always too clever. Suddenly, a hand grabs his foot. Then we see the professor saying he will never forgive Zhang. The man looks down with his cold stare. He pulls out a gun and tells the professor to stop resisting and hurry up and turn into a zombie as he shoots him. Right after, he says the professor once said he would risk everything in the name of science, and that he really believed in his talents from the bottom of his heart. The professor is lying on the floor, gritting his teeth in pain. Smiling, Zhang says that after this, humanity will remember him forever. He continues by saying that from now on, the performance belongs to him. The professor keeps gritting his teeth and cursing. His body begins to mutate as he thinks that he's going down right there and can't believe it, and if he is, then he's taking everyone with him. We see the outside of the room and hear the professor scream. Haoyan and the professor run, and he comments that they were lucky the two started fighting each other, otherwise, they would have been dragged down too. As they leave the building, he asks the professor what they're going to do now, and she says to alert everyone at the camp because soon Professor Khan will turn into a monster. A man shouts at them, asking what happened and what they did in the lab, while Haoyan tells him to gather all their weapons. The man looks confused and asks why they should gather weapons, and if Zhang would send everyone to meet God. The professor says there's no time to explain and asks him to trust her, that they need to get out of there now. The boy thinks that the moment the man gets distracted, he will kill him. Suddenly something jumps very high into the sky. Right after, it crashes to the ground with tremendous force. Haoyan stops and recognizes the monster as Professor Kan. The people of the camp start to panic when they see a mutant zombie. One of the men pulls out a pistol and asks why they're just standing there and not shooting at the monster. Many people at the camp start opening fire on the giant mutant zombie. The zombie lets out a loud scream. It then charges at the survivors. Some call for help, others say to activate the ultraviolet rays, and others shout to run. Haoyan tells the professor that they need to hide while she asks him to wait, and he says if they wait any longer, they're going to be dragged down. She says she might know a way to send Professor Khan to have a little chat with God. The boy is surprised and asks what she means by that. In the next second, a colorful baseball bat full of nails slams to the ground. We see Yanji remembering Kowak's words, asking her to trust him because he'd be right back. She also remembers him telling her to protect herself while he wasn't around so she wouldn't be defeated. Then in the next moment, we see her with the baseball bat in hand, standing in front of the giant mutant zombie. The girl prepares to strike the monster. The zombie stands expressionless, staring at her. We hear a loud crash and dust rising. Survivors yell for everyone to run as fast as they can while rocks fly through the air. A little boy runs with tears in his eyes, begging for them to wait for him. We see that as he runs, huge stones begin falling toward him. The professor quickly shouts and leaps onto the boy, saving him from the falling rock. The little boy then recognizes Professor Jia. She asks if the boy can still run, and he says yes. The woman tells him to be strong and run to the garden where Uncle Hugh is, while she mentally hopes Haoyan is almost done. Then we see a vial of green liquid being held. Haoyan thinks about how he hid the first phase of the antibody sample from Professor Kan in his dorm room. He gets the idea that it might be able to defeat the mutant zombie, but how would he inject it into its body? Suddenly, it seems like the boy has an idea. We see Yanji thrown on top of Haoyan. Haoyan immediately recognizes the girl. Accidentally, he drops the capsule with the green liquid beside him. The capsule rolls far away from him as they both hit the ground. The giant mutant zombie looms above them. The zombie looks down at them, seemingly smiling. The boy tries to think of what to do in that moment. His instinct tells him to run now, and he glances at the green vial. He grits his teeth thinking of Kowak. He musters up the courage and runs while screaming. In the next instant, the giant mutant zombie brings down a crushing blow toward the boy. Yanji reacts faster and pushes the boy out of the way, causing the monster's blow to miss. The monster's strike kicks up a cloud of dust as the boy rolls across the courtyard. He gets up and shouts for Yanji. He sees that the girl managed to grab the green vial and also dodge the monster's attack. She then removes the cap from the capsule, revealing a needle. Haoyan shouts for her to throw the syringe into the zombie's mouth. She prepares for the throw. Using all her skill and strength, she hurls the needle toward the monster's mouth. We see the needle break the monster's teeth and enter it. Once again, Yanji appears with her blank expression and energy swirling around her. Haoyan is amazed to see that she didn't miss. The monster then falls to its knees and various parts of its body begin to mutate. A massive explosion of smoke erupts. Yanji stands beside the boy, watching what will happen next. Then we see a massive mass of flesh lying on the cracked concrete. The boy sees that they finally defeated the monster and never imagined Professor Kan would become a zombie as a result of his own vaccine. We then see what's left of the professor. The boy calls out Yanji and says the other survivors need their help. Something happens, startling the boy and making him look back immediately. Suddenly, something knocks him to the ground. The massive flesh starts to take shape again. The being that was once the professor, then a giant mutant zombie, is now a new creature. We see what looks like a piece of metal embedded in the concrete with a red cloth at the tip. Then a hand grabs the tip of that metal. Next we see Yanji with her blank expression. On the other side stands a monster that looks like a giant red lion. She, with her expressionless eyes, and it, with its many furious eyes, stare each other down. The monster charges and throws a punch. The punch hits the ground while Yanji slides underneath the monster. She quickly rises with a sword in her other hand. The girl targets a strike at the monster's back. The blow lands squarely on the monster's right knee, leaving a hole in its place. She maintains her serious look and uses the monster's back to gain height. In the air, she spins with her sword. The lion-like monster lets out a massive roar. It looks up as the girl descends with her sword for another strike. She swiftly pierces through the creature. Then she recovers her balance, and then a bright light appears near her face. We see her unleash a countless flurry of ultra-fast attacks on the beast. The monster remains expressionless amid the flurry of blows being unleashed upon it. Suddenly, it stretches one of its paws forward. The girl anticipates the attack and dodges. It then moves its massive arm down toward her, and she only has time to raise her sword in front of her body. The sword vanishes from her hands, and she shows a brief flicker of surprise in her eyes. The beast takes advantage of the girl's confusion and kicks her square in the face, sending her flying into the air. She feels the force of the blow but manages to keep one eye slightly open, looking down. The impact was so strong that she continues to soar. In the blink of an eye, the beast appears beside her, preparing a downward strike. With all its power, the beast lands a full blow on Yanji, sending her crashing to the ground. The girl hits the floor with such force that a small crater forms, destroying all the surrounding concrete. The beast slams down on top of her. With a soft growl, the beast looks down. The mutant zombie opens its mouth and begins to lower its face slowly toward Yanji. A pistol is fired. The gunshot hits the zombie lion monster on the snout. Hao Yin, nearby with a pistol, tells the beast to look at him. Clearly, the mutant doesn't like that and lets out a powerful roar in the boy's direction. The next moment, the lion leaps and punches the ground very close to the boy, who dodges, and we see a cloud of smoke form from the force of the strike. The boy stumbles to his feet, saying that he was the one who always prioritized life and depended on others to survive. As he runs, he points the gun behind him and shouts at the beast, saying it's all its fault. All cares for. The boy smiles with his swollen face and says that when he comes back, he'd better hold Hao Yin's funeral, as we see the monster's claw heading toward the boy. A massive impact occurs, and a blinding flash obscures the view. Then we see Xiaoyu kicking the lion's hand away. Hao Yin is stunned, not understanding what's happening. He recognizes Xiaoyu the moment he sees her. The monster flies back from the impact of the zombie girl's strike. Kowak approaches Yanji and says she'll get better after eating that. Our hero then turns and asks the boy if he's okay, and he replies that he is. He quickly says that Zhang and his team were researching how to evolve the virus, not cure it, and that the mutant was Professor Khan. Our hero tells Hao Yin to take Yanji to a safe place. Frightened, he says he wants to stay because the monster is too strong, and if it's only Zhao Yu, things could go bad. Kowak says that's exactly why he wants him to go. He adds that at the moment the boy is the only one who can guarantee their escape. Hao Yin then lowers his head and accepts, saying he understands. Kowak glances sideways at him and tells the boy not to worry because he won't go down. The boy and Yanji slowly retreat. Our hero adds that after all, there are still other things he needs to take care of. Then we notice someone watching the entire fight from one of the buildings. Zhang is at the window of the neighboring building, observing everything from above. Someone says they really don't understand the need for so much formality while standing in front of SUNY Shore City Medical University. The woman says it's endless studying medical ethics and everything else. They're medical students after all. They already know all of it. She continues questioning whether it was really necessary to hold a meeting and waste their entire morning, including asking them to take an oath. The man says he doesn't get it either and asks Xiao Yu how that saying goes. Smiling, she says it's something like words have power, and that they won't just remember it when it's spoken aloud. It will also give them strength. Much later, a man calls for her, saying there's a huge hole in the car's fuel tank and that it looks like someone tampered with it. She wonders if Zhang planned all of this from the beginning. Hao Yin, next to Yanji, says that with the amount of noise they made, there must already be a ton of zombies outside the camp and they can't stay there any longer. The remaining survivors start to wonder what they'll do now and say they don't want to die there. But there's still that monster attacking everyone. They then ask the professor what she thinks. Should they go outside or hide? She takes a few seconds to think and then says they should go to the experimental test area because that place was reinforced. Sometime later, they arrive at Warehouse 2. Hao Yin looks ahead and asks the professor if that's the right place. She says yes and tells the people to keep running, that they'll be safe as soon as they get inside. The mutant zombie appears growling at them. The people react, but the professor tells them not to stop and to keep running. The professor seems to recognize the zombie because of the band it wears around its head. Hao Yin notices Yanji suddenly change direction while running. The woman then stumbles and begins to fall. He notices this and runs to help, telling her not to push herself too hard. He secretly thinks that if the zombie goes toward the crowd, everyone will be dragged down. The professor watching thinks she needs to find a way to stop that monster. She looks behind and sees that the entrance is right in front of them. They just need to hold for 3 more seconds. She thinks the vaccine research has to start all over again and that only she can understand all that data. She can't afford to mess up now. Now she stretches her arms forward to grab a person who's passing by. Then she apologizes. The person, confused, looks at her and asks what's going on. She grips the person's clothes tightly. Pushing the woman toward the door, she shouts for everyone to keep running. Then we see the professor running directly toward the mutant zombie. She closes her eyes and grits her teeth as she charges at it. Hao Yin desperately shouts her name. While running, she thinks of all the seniors who placed their hopes in her. The professor keeps running, thinking that she disappointed them all. But then she reflects and realizes that they all made the same decision she's making now. She remembers her graduation, taking her oath, and thinks that from that moment on, she always gave more importance to human life. The monster opens its mouth, preparing to attack her. Then we see a white dove, also with its mouth open. The bird seems to fly through a cloud of dust. Then we see she's not alone. There are many other doves flying above her. The doves soar together, rising into the sky, until none of them can be seen anymore. Jang claps his hands. He says the courage humans show in their final moments is truly incredible. Looking to the side, he asks if it isn't exactly like that. From behind a pillar, someone answers that it is while walking out of the shadows. Then we see Koak sarcastically calling the other his friend while cracking his neck. Finally, Koak and Jang face each other directly, their gazes intense and challenging. Both show serious, tension-filled expressions, ready for what's about to come. Koak focuses, positions his fingers, and starts moving his hands in calculated, precise motions. The tension in the air rises quickly, making the atmosphere between them almost unbearable. Out of patience, Koak leaps fiercely toward his former friend, launching a direct and ferocious attack. Jang reacts quickly, draws his gun with speed, and points it straight at Koak, ready to shoot. Our hero quickly notices the weapon drawn. He manages to run behind a pillar where we see the bullets hit. He continues zigzagging toward Jang while the latter keeps missing his shots. With his teeth clenched, Jang swings the gun to the side. But Koak was faster, slapping the gun out of his former friend's hand. The shot fires into the air as we see Koak preparing a punch with his other fist. With a serious expression and clenched fist, our hero steps forward to deliver his blow. The punch lands squarely on Jang's face. The man clearly didn't expect it to hurt that much, nor that the punch would connect. He tries to use the momentum of the hit to set his footing, and then swings his other leg to counter the punch with a kick. But Koak gives him no chance to breathe and lands another heavy punch to his face. Our hero's expression remains fixed and serious, completely focused on his objective. The boy grabs Jang's shirt. Then he finally asks the question that's been haunting him. Why did his friend do all this? Jang says for many reasons, and in the end, the reason doesn't matter. Our hero asks, and it's really okay for him to trample on people's lives and dignity? With a wicked smile, Jang says he couldn't care less about others. Koak, with fury in his eyes, says that's fine, and it seems he now understands everything he needed to know about his former friend. He throws him to the ground and pulls out his sword with his other hand, telling him to remember to be a good person in the next life. Raising his sword, he says goodbye to Jang. With absolutely no expression in his eyes, no remorse, nothing, he simply brings the blade down upon the man. The villain has just enough time to react and manages only to close one eye as the sword comes down on him. Then we see nothing but darkness. The darkness is followed by lightning and rain. We see an enormous fist colliding with a small, feminine fist. We realize the battle between the giant beast and Xiao Yu is still ongoing. The beast unleashes a powerful attack, but Xiao Yu blocks it and is thrown to the ground. The monster leaps at her with its flaming fist ready for a lethal blow. It slams a powerful punch into the ground, triggering a massive explosion that shakes everything around. Despite the devastating blast, the zombie girl emerges at the center of it, completely unharmed and steady. Frustrated by the outcome, the beast lets out a furious roar that echoes through the area. Now it's her turn. She channels energy into her fist, taking a deadly offensive stance. Her punch strikes the creature's stomach, and the energy explodes through its body and out its back. Standing motionless in the rain, the zombie girl watches the scene with a cold, empty gaze. The creature collapses to its knees, body trembling, trying to stay upright after the brutal impact. Struggling to breathe, the creature attempts to recover from the devastating blow that shook it to the core. Just ahead of the creature, we see several unconscious survivors scattered on the ground like discarded pieces. With furious eyes, the monster stares at something in front of it, showing rage and full focus on the threat. The zombie girl leaps and lands between the monster and the other person, shielding them with her still body. Without hesitation, she charges forward again with all her might, preparing another direct attack against the massive, wounded enemy. She jumped to protect but quickly notices something dangerous speeding toward her, then everything goes silent. A loud crash echoes and a thick cloud of dust covers the scene. We return to the scene of Jang holding the sword and calling out to his friend, Koak. He says the boy couldn't win before and shouldn't think he could now. Then he breaks the tip of our hero's sword with his bare hands. With a menacing look, he tells his former friend not to dare take his eyes off him. A dust cloud begins to rise and our hero quickly jumps back. Then he notices the syringe's needle at the tip and it's empty. Jang confirms it, saying that was indeed the final result of his research. We then see Xiao Yu retreating, recovering from the blow she received. Zhang, the former friend, says that if he wants to survive in a world like this, he would have to become a predator who never stops evolving. Koak and Hao Yin are talking, and our hero is explaining that they are a team. He's the boss, the two girls are his assistants, and they go on missions together. He continues explaining that they managed to survive thanks to shared resources, and that they'll probably keep it up for a while. Then he asks Hao Yin if he wants to join them, because after this he has a plan, something bigger, something important he wants to accomplish. Hao Yin stands still, eyes wide, staring at our hero. Then he gives a slight smile, saying of course he'll help. We return to the fight between Zhang and Kowak, with Zhang landing a punch on Kowak's chest. The blow throws the boy several meters back. Zhang says that Kowak always lets his emotions get in the way, and if he had eliminated him earlier, maybe he wouldn't have been able to inject the vaccine. Kowak gets up and says that defeating him with a single strike would be too kind for what he deserves. Zhang smirks and says the boy may have just missed the last chance of his life to finish him. Our hero replies that he doesn't think so. The former friend calls him stubborn as he charges in again. Kowak, now with a metal rod in hand, also rushes at him. We see the impact of their clash, which raises a cloud of dust between buildings. Then we see the barrel of a shining gun. Hao-Yin says he grabbed the weapon to help Kowak, but didn't expect things to turn out like this. Zhang truly became a mutant on his own. He sees our hero being forced into a defensive stance during the fight. He also doubts that the gun can kill Zhang, but at least it might buy them some time. The problem is he only has one shot, and if he gives away his position, it's all over for him. He sweats cold as he aims, calculating and lining up his only shot. His finger trembles on the trigger, so nervous he could barely hold it. Smiling, Zhang stood with his hand outstretched, saying this was the end for Kowak. He grabbed Kowak's head and slammed it against the wall. Our hero felt the pain of the impact and the terrifying new strength of his mutated friend. Meanwhile, Hao-Yin used the moment to focus his aim. He saw the perfect opportunity to take the shot, but Zhang looked directly at him in that exact second. Hao-Yin panics, thinking his position had been exposed just as he pulled the trigger and fired. We see the projectile speeding toward its target at lightning speed. The shot hits and Hao-Yin says he got him. He drops the gun and starts running, knowing his location is now compromised. Then he looks back. All he can see is Kowak kneeling on the ground. Zhang is nowhere in sight. Confused, Hao-Yin wonders where Zhang could have gone. Suddenly, something pierces straight through his torso. Still in shock, Hao-Yin looks down, watching what's happening to his own body. Zhang appears in front of him, asking if he was looking for him. He says a bullet obviously wouldn't drag him down, that he didn't expect it when he aimed. Hao-Yin is in total shock, confused, and enraged. He reaches into his back pocket and pulls out a grenade, removing the pin. Angrily, he yells that they're going to hell together. Suddenly, the arm holding the grenade is flying through the air. Once again confused, Hao-Yin stares at his severed limb in disbelief. Zhang stands before him with a serious look. Seconds later, the grenade explodes nearby. Kowak, still on his knees, cries out Hao-Yin's name. He collapses from weakness. With a trembling voice, he says to himself that he has to move. Then we see Zhang removing his pointed tail from Hao-Yin's torso. Zhang says ambushing people isn't a good idea and asks Hao-Yin if he agrees. With a weak voice, Hao-Yin says that if Zhang means he was being a jerk, he admits he's not very experienced and probably needs to learn more. Zhang replies that he'll teach the boy something. Then the tip of his tail opens into a small mouth, and he finishes his sentence by saying he'll show him what it means to make full use of everything. He strikes again with his tail, piercing Hao-Yin's stomach. The boy screams in pain as Zhang wonders aloud if he could control someone he turned into a zombie himself. Yanji and Xiaoyu arrive on the scene, ready to face the chaos unfolding. Noticing them, the man slowly turns his head, locking eyes on the approaching threat. Yanji raises a metal bar and brings it down hard, aiming directly at the enemy. With a single, swift move, the man intercepts her attack, gripping the bar firmly. With contempt, he counters the strike, saying Yanji is far too slow to be a real opponent. His counter lands squarely on Yanji's arm, twisting it with a sharp, painful crack. Even injured, Yanji simply raises one eyebrow, the faintest sign of emotion on her blank face. With brutal force, she is thrown against Xiaoyu, her arm limp, nearly torn from her shoulder. Their impact raises a thick cloud of dust that blankets the area. Kowak, weakened, crawls slowly toward Hao-Yin, calling his name through a voice choked with pain. He tells the boy not to speak, saying there's definitely a medicine that can save him, and tells the system he wants to generate the roulette. The boy smiles and tells him to listen. He says that before the apocalypse, Zhang had set him up and he only realized it after getting fired. But at the time, he was a coward, too afraid of losing his job to warn the directors or contact Kowak. He continues, saying that even though he changed a lot after the apocalypse, when he saw Zhang again, he still didn't have the courage to admit the truth. Hao-Yin confesses that when they encountered Zhang, he originally wanted to defeat him to avenge Kowak, and then he planned to run away, too ashamed to stay by his side. But when Kowak said he wanted to form a new company, his mind changed, because he genuinely missed the days he could follow Kowak. Then with his eyes already blurring, he smiles and says he truly wants to start a new company with him. Then we see Hao-Yin with his eyes closed and a serene smile on his face. Kowak holds the boy's arm and begins to cry uncontrollably. Kowak remains frozen, mouth open, staring at Hao-Yin's lifeless body on the ground in disbelief. He watches carefully and with no doubt concludes that Hao-Yin is gone. The camera slowly pans down to Hao-Yin's cold hand, lying motionless on the floor. Suddenly, the hand clenches tightly as if something within it triggered it. Kowak jumps back in shock, eyes wide, his heart racing without warning. When he looks up, he sees Hao Yin standing, now as a zombie. A sharp sound behind Kowak grabs his attention, and he immediately turns to look. Zhang raises his voice and commands zombie Hao Yin to eliminate Kowak without hesitation. Our hero, consumed by fury, starts shouting curses at Zhang, completely losing his temper. Hao Yin charges, leaping at Kowak with arms raised in aggression. He throws several furious blows, but Kowak keeps dodging with agility, fully focused. Zhang smirks and asks, "Kowak, what's wrong? Why can't you fight?" As Kowak groans in pain, Zhang says that this is the face he wants to see and tells his ex-friend to entertain him more. He continues saying that if Kowak doesn't defeat Hao Yin, then Hao Yin will be the one to defeat him. After retreating so much, our hero stumbles on a stone. He starts to fall as zombie Hao Yin lunges forward with his mouth wide open. Kowak closes his eyes. Something bursts from a pile of supplies at terrifying speed. We catch a quick glimpse of Xiao Yu. She arrives just in time, placing her hand on Hao Yin's face to stop the bite. Zhang looks at the girl seriously and calls her an obstacle. He puts 2 fingers to his mouth and whistles, causing something to crash down behind him with great force. A monster resembling a massive bear lands behind him as he orders it to eliminate the zombie girl. The monster then leaps toward its target. The zombie girl holds a U-shaped metal fragment in her hands, using it as an improvised weapon. She uses the metal to pin zombie Hao Yin's body against the wall by the neck. In the next moment, the monster appears behind Xiao Yu. She turns around with determination, ready to face the new threat. Before the monster can strike, Kowak flies in with his sword, slashing at the monster's giant hands. He shouts that he already lost Hao Yin and can't lose Xiao Yu too. The monster swings its other massive paw, slamming Kowak and sending him flying. The boy bounces across the ground several times and is thrown, crashing into a wall. We then see Kowak slumped against the wall, a large crater behind him from the impact. He finally says he can't move. Suddenly, the wall beside him explodes from the impact of another body. It's Xiao Yu, thrown as well, now severely wounded. Zhang, with arms crossed, tells Kowak to look at his precious assistants, now like broken dolls. Smiling, he asks if the boy doesn't value his employees more than anything, since she's about to fall to pieces. He also asks if the boy regrets letting his emotions take over, if he regrets not finishing him earlier. Boasting, he says that's why Kowak had already lost from the start. Our boy calls out to Xiao Yu and asks her to take Yanji and get out of there. The system informs that Xiao Yu has refused his command. Kowak pleads with her not to sacrifice herself, to just run. The system again states Xiao Yu has declined his command. He asks her if she didn't always want a family. Then he says that if she stays alive, she can always find a new one. Since she doesn't move, he yells at her to go. As long as she leaves his side, she can live on. The zombie girl then speaks for the first time, saying no. Kowak was stunned. He had never heard her speak before. She repeats, "No." Then she takes a fighting stance and says one word, "Desista, don't give up." The boy then closes one eye as a bright light flashes directly in front of his face. He suddenly sees himself standing in front of the building where he used to live. Someone behind him says they finally found him, and Kowak turns to see who it is. Then he sees Xiao Yu, smiling, saying she finally found her boss, Kowak. She pauses to think about what she'll say when she meets him. Probably he won't even remember her. After all, she was just an intern. The girl starts rehearsing several crazy conversations, mimicking voices in her head. Kowak starts laughing, seeing how indecisive and scattered she is. She closes her eyes for a moment and lets out a long sigh, trying to calm her thoughts. At last, she settles on a phrase she heard once, that the boss isn't doing well, so she came to visit him, hoping it would cheer him up. Xiao Yu goes on to say that since she ran away from home, she's always wondered if she made the right choice, never knowing exactly where to go. She says she truly hopes he can smile again and keep going, believing in what he always stood for. The girl in memory smiles as if looking at him, smiling just for him. Then she shakes her head and says, why is she saying her feelings out loud? She needs to keep training until she meets a real person. She asks someone passing by how to get to apartment number 33. When the old man doesn't respond, she calls out to him again. He turns slowly, and when she sees his face, it's clear he's a zombie. That was the moment Xiao Yu became the zombie girl. Kowak finally understands why Xiao Yu showed up near his house. He looks sideways at her and says, until the end. The girl, now surrounded by radiant light, says that's why. He needs to cheer up. She reaches her hand out to him. With her hand extended, she calls him boss and smiles. The system announces that Xiao Yu has been promoted to an elite staff member. Xiao Yu, glowing with a golden aura and smiling, extends her hand to Kowak and tells him to cheer up. The boy, smiling back at her, takes her hand and says yes. Their hands meet mid-air, firm, resolute, sealing a silent bond between them. She helps him up, still glowing, and the system announces an update. The bond function has been unlocked. As the monster leaps toward them, the system notifies that while Xiao Yu was on the field, her attack and defense will be increased and she gains a new ability. The two easily dodge the monster's attack, which crashes violently into the ground. The monster glares at them in fury, preparing for another strike. Xiao Yu, smiling and enjoying the battle, But between the building pillars, the dust rises from their ongoing combat. From behind Kowak, Zhang seizes the moment and jumps into the fray. Without showing urgency or surprise, Kowak glances over his shoulder with his usual calm. Zhang launches his sudden furious attack, but Kowak is no longer there. Zhang stands confused. Just a second ago, he was right in front of him. He realizes Kowak moved to rescue Yanji from the rubble and now holds her in his arms. Zhang stares in disbelief, asking what speed is that, and mutters that Kowak is impossible. Kowak realizes this new mode feels nothing like the previous collaborative style. He feels warmth and can sense Xiaoyu clearly. Xiaoyu, meanwhile, continues battling the monster, effortlessly dodging its savage blows. The hulking beast keeps swinging violently, but Xiaoyu easily avoids every strike. The zombie girl grins and tells the monster it's too slow. Zhang, in shock, watches with disbelief. He can't comprehend how Kowak was on the verge of collapse just moments ago. Then suddenly he realizes something. He's trembling. He looks at Kowak, who is calmly feeding Yanji, now leaning against a pillar, and wonders if he's actually afraid of the boy. Then Zhang clenches his teeth, furious. He screams for Kan to eliminate Kowak right now. The monster, which had been attacking Xiaoyu, immediately turns and charges toward Kowak, but Xiaoyu catches onto its movement. Kowak tells Yanji to sit right there and not go anywhere, reassuring her she'll be feeling better soon, just as the monster prepares to strike from behind. He then continues telling Yanji to leave the rest to him and Xiaoyu as the monster approaches them faster and faster. We then see Xiaoyu's foot hitting the ground at high speed, kicking up dust. She quickly gets between the monster and her boss. Kowak tells her to activate her 3 abilities: Violent God of War, Heavy Cleaver, and Immortality, and she confirms. The system displays that all 3 of the girl's abilities have been activated simultaneously. Surrounded by an immense golden aura, Xiaoyu prepares to strike the beast. Next, we see energy erupting from 6 points on her back. From the front, the energy forms the shape of wings. The system informs that the Immortality skill at level 1 grants her total immunity to all attacks for 60 seconds, with a cooldown of 240 hours. Zhang watches in fear, eyes wide as stones fly around him from the shockwave of the girl's power. Quickly, he pivots on his foot and begins to run away, saying he can't believe what's happening. He mutters to himself, asking how they could become so strong all of a sudden, and worse, even stronger together. Suddenly, Kowak catches up beside him and calls out to him. He asks if Zhang is afraid now, and Zhang turns to him, drenched in cold sweat. Kowak lands a swift blow, sending Zhang flying backward, leaving his arm behind. Our hero is surprised to see that Zhang used his arm to block the strike and says it's fine. He owed that arm to Hao Yin. Zhang uses the moment to flee, saying he has to get out of there and come up with a better plan. As he runs, Kowak yells for Xiaoyu. The girl, still glowing with her golden aura, appears in front of Zhang, startling him. He barely has time to think before she kicks him square in the face, sending him flying. He crashes and lands in a twisted heap on the ground in the distance. We see Zhang's mangled body on the floor. He tries to get up slowly, his whole body racked with pain. He hadn't noticed until now, but beside him lies the face of the unmoving beast. Gritting his teeth, he begins muttering Kowak's name over and over, full of hatred. Suddenly, he starts repeating the word no relentlessly. Before he realizes it, Kowak is flying overhead, sword in hand, declaring that it's over. Just before delivering the final blow, Kowak senses something. Desperate, Zhang starts devouring the corpse of the beast beside him, screaming that Kowak was the one person he never wanted to lose to. So the video ends here. If you don't want to miss the next part, activate the notification bell. Thank you. Bye. Channel.